Hello and welcome to More Than a Game, a podcast about the A-Leagues, Premier League and more. Well, normally, today it's all Premier League in our annual Premier League season preview pod. It's just 7 days until the Patrick Vieira derby with Crystal Palace and Arsenal, the first game of the 2022-2023 Premier League season. It's going to be a really interesting season. Erling Haaland has arrived in the Prem. How will he do? How will Liverpool cope without Mane in the bank? Will Cristiano Ronaldo still be around? Can Arteta or Conte lead Arsenal or Spurs to the next level? Who is the ugliest manager in the Prem? Which promoted team has the best chance of getting a point before the World Cup starts in November? And of course, Kit Chat, you betcha. All this and plenty more on today's pod. We have a stacked panel today. Those that are on the YouTube panel will be able to see all of our ugly mugs straight up. We've got Colby, Damo, new recruit Mikey, foreign correspondent George, and like a well-stocked cellar, we've also got a fine French red too, with Jesse dialing in from Paris to talk a bit of Liverpool shortly as well. Boys, great to have you all back. It's been maybe 2 months since our last pod. You've been busy in the off-season, boys? Colby?
Mate, we're like Manchester City this season. We've got a really deep squad, stacked, lots of strength and depth on the bench. But yeah, very, very busy off season for me, mate. Lots going on.
And what about the rest of you? Damo, you've had a busy morning, I know.
Yeah, busy morning. Busy couple of months researching who the ugliest manager in the Prem is. I think I've landed on my answer, so we'll get to that later.
I feel like the ugliest manager is an easy one, and maybe we should have a conversation about who's the best looking manager instead.
I just think all the managers must be sweating now.
It's got to be Scott Parker. Come on, that's obvious. Too easy.
George, you've been sweating your bollocks off over the last couple of weeks over in the UK, just over whether or not Chelsea are going to sign a centre back. I'm sure. How you
George
been?
is sweating every time he sees Barcelona in the headlines.
No, I've crossed Barcelona off the Travellers, boys. It's not happening.
Madrid only.
But yeah, no, it's been good. I've had a lot of Aussie visitors the last few months, so everyone's doing their European vacation. So I've been operating a hostel in my flat. So
very good, mate. I'm sure you're not the first person living in London to have plenty of Aussies staying on their couch. And last but not least, Mikey, it's great to have you back on the pod again. We had you on a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was last season or the season before, but it's going to be great to have you on a bit more of a regular basis this time around.
Yeah, great to be here. My off season has been a lot of missing the football. I've been standing in a field in Dandenong in the cold twice this week just to get my football fixed. So I can't wait for the season to get kicking.
Jeez, must have been.
Oh yeah. Fair few of them got down. Yeah,
you must have been pretty desperate if you're going out to Dandenong for a football fix, I reckon. But
I can't even describe how cold it was. It was unbelievable.
What? See Melbourne City?
Yep, twice in 1 week in Dandenong in a field in the mud.
Melbourne City MPL as well.
Sporting Casey.
Yeah.
All right. Look, as normal on our Premier League season preview pod, we're going to be discussing sort of some broader themes and maybe sort of give some of our predictions before we get into doing a team by team preview of how we think each team is going to go throughout this season. So look, I guess first up, I think the obvious question that's on everyone's lips, and it's not to do with Cristiano Ronaldo, it's first position on the table. Does anyone think that with the additions of Erling Haaland, Calvin Phillips, and Alvarez, can anyone keep pace with Manchester City this season? Damo?
I mean, I have tipped Manchester City to win the league again. I think like probably a huge portion of people who watch the Premier League, but I'm sure there's some hopeful, optimistic fans of other clubs out there that are tipping their own team to win. But no, I don't think anyone can catch City.
Does anyone think anything different?
I think it depends how Haaland hits the ground running, because he's either going to be the best thing the Premier League's seen in a long time, or
the Norwegian Lukaku.
The Norwegian Lukaku, yeah. And I think the
Just-
facts. I mean, I'll get into this more in my preview, but strengthening Arsenal with Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko and Sterling going to Chelsea. That's a big kind of endorsement of how much depth City has got, that they're willing to strengthen their rivals with some real starting 11 players.
Yeah, I
Pretty
think
scary,
it's a depth thing as well, because I think the only thing that could undo them is their depth, because they've lost Sterling and Gabi Jesus, so that's sort of two of their rotating front line. You know, they've added Haaland. Alvarez is untested. You know, if Haaland gets injured, you know, who's the front three, and is it reliable enough with your Bernardo Silvas dropping in and Mahrez, you know, sort of filling the void that sort of Sterling and Gabi Jesus, who used to pinch hit for them last season. So
I just want to underline Mikey's point. Like, it says a lot about how stacked you are when your surplus to requirements in Sterling and Gabi Jesus are like marquee signings for your title challengers. It should be your title challengers. So,
And how
that
confident
says it
you
all.
are that you're that much better than them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And boys, you've already mentioned, I guess, a couple of those names that I want to refer to next. But I guess I want to throw out there, there's been a couple of big signings this summer with, obviously, Haaland. We mentioned him already. Darwin Núñez, he's a big in at Liverpool. Gabi Jesus at Arsenal, and Sterling at Chelsea. Who do you guys think is the best big transfer, I guess, of the window so far? George?
I think we just touched on him, Erling Haaland. Like, he's the best young player in the world, you know, arguably, and he's just gone to the best team in the Premier League. So surely that's going to be the answer, really.
What's, I guess, going to be most fascinating, I think, is if Haaland does really blow up, it's going to be exciting, I guess, having sort of the best player in the best league or one of the hardest leagues. And we're going to be watching him sort of every week. I mean, I didn't watch a lot of La Liga when Messi and Ronaldo were just blowing up every week. But I guess that in itself is going to be really exciting to see how that pans out. Anyone think anything different? Colby, I'm sure you're just itching to just blow up Darwin Núñez.
Oh, he's a bit untested. You can't go past Haaland, though. Like, I mean, the man's going to have to seriously flop or get very injured, which is a possibility. He's, you know, he's a little bit of an injury-prone player.
He's a large man.
Yeah,
He's
got a large frame. So yeah, something's going to have to happen to stop that train.
I think people are really sleeping on Sterling. I mean, he's one of the most underrated. He's got to be in one of the best right-sided wingers in Premier League history.
Tapping merchant, isn't he?
Stats alone. Yeah, but he might be a tapping merchant, but he can do that at Chelsea as well because they create just as many chances. So
No,
I think people are really sleeping on him. I'm sure you'll talk about him later, George.
No, but Damo, you know who's probably the most excited? Jorginho. Thinking about all the penalties Chelsea are going to win.
Little jumpy
What's
boys.
What's wild about Sterling was he scored 13 goals last year just in the league, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, he had a poor season." Which, I mean, 13 goals, like that's probably more than most teams' top scorer, right? So, yeah, wild. Boys, similar but different topic. Josh Watson asks, massive hype around Haaland and Núñez, of course, but do you see both or either struggling to adapt this season?
Yeah, there's just that big question mark around Haaland about how he's going to go in the Prem. I think there was some issues with his fitness in pre-season, but he's too good to fail in the Prem. I think he will be really successful, but I guess it's one to keep an eye on.
Anyone thinking that Haaland might actually sort of be slowly introduced into the City starting 11, or do you think he's going to be thrown into the deep end straight away?
They've got to put him right in just purely for PR. They can't start him on the bench. As like George said, people consider him as one of the best young players in the world. The future heir to the throne of Ronaldo sort of thing is what people are putting him on a pedestal as. But I think both Haaland and Núñez will take a while to kick off. And I think fans are probably starting to get a little bit itchy a few games into the season. It takes everyone time to adapt to the Premier League, and we've seen it time and time again. No one really comes in and just starts banging goals.
Fair enough.
Except Mo Salah.
Yeah, but he'd been in the Premier League before.
Oh, okay, technical.
All right, boys. Moving on to the other end of the table, though, you've got a couple of brandly new promoted teams. You've got Fulham returning after just 12 months out of the top division. Bournemouth, they had a couple of years out, and Forest have had a whopping, I think, 23 years out of the top division. How are you guys thinking, or who are you thinking out of the promoted teams is going to end up doing the best? George?
Take the bait.
Yeah, it's a tough one because they're so untrustworthy. But I think Fulham, they're in the Premier League every second season. Surely they've learned something.
Got one on the line, Tommy.
I'm not saying they're going to make the top half or anything. I think they might finish fourth from bottom. Just sneak out of the relegation zone. That's all.
George, are you saying this? Don't you live in West London?
No, I live around the corner from Highbury. So
right, okay, all right. I thought maybe like the Fulham locals had sort of gotten into you, and
I think that there is a new stand there. They've got a little new stand they've built. So
oh well, that's a completely different story then.
I guess that means they're staying
renovation at the cottage. Wow,
Renos.
I've been bamboozled by Fulham as well, Tommy. I must admit, I've also taken the bait. I went to do our season predictions, which I guess we'll be tweeting out, so you can find those on our Twitter feed as well. We're all sort of giving our season predictions, and when I got to the question who's going to get relegated, like my knee-jerk reaction was, oh yeah, Fulham definitely, and then I just thought, oh, I'll check their squad. And then I'm looking through it, going, "Oh, this looks like a squad that could stay up." I mean, I think they're safe. Like Mitrovic, maybe he's not going to do me dirty again.
Alfie Mawson, they've signed at the back, just an absolute rock.
Blast from the past.
I think he's actually moved on since, but still, it's same vibes. I think really, but. Anyone else got anything different to that? They think Bournemouth or Forest have got a good chance of staying up.
I mean,
I think Forest will finish the highest of the three, and that's what I've predicted in my my league table predictions. I think both Fulham and Bournemouth will go down, and Forest will stay up.
Jesse Lingard.
Is that the Jay Lingard factor?
Yeah, Jay Lings. I think Forest have signed about 12
Give him the Ballon d'Or now.
Players.
Because that always works, Damo, when you bring in a good 12.
Well, I guess it's better than just being a Fulham or a Norwich and just keeping your exact squad and just going back up and down.
Oh dear, it's going to be a wild ride because I think a lot of people don't have very high expectations for Fulham and Bournemouth, but yeah, Forest, I think they're sort of the big unknown. Are they just going to be like Norwich or Huddersfield from sort of 2-3 seasons ago, or are they actually going to make a go of it? So it's going to be very interesting to see how it pans out. Look, we're only a couple of questions in, but I don't think it's too early to start a little bit of kit chat. Boys, anyone got their eye on a particular kit as the best, worst, or one they think is maybe a little bit divisive amongst the punters out there?
The Chelsea third kit has got to be the worst, hasn't it?
Is that the white one?
Yeah, the white one with the little squiggly blue lines.
Yeah.
It looks like a training top.
Was it someone in, I don't know if it was a group chat or a tweet, someone said they liked the 3 logo so much that they made a kit out of it?
Yeah, that was Jesse. Yeah.
Good chat from Jesse. Still contributing even when he's on holidays. Good from him.
Yeah,
George is an avid lover of the 3 network, aren't you, George?
So we go way back. So
have your legal proceedings finished with the 3?
Waiting for the
Sign an
ombudsman to
NDA.
come
You can't
back to
talk
me.
about it.
Waiting for the ombudsman to come back to me. As part of the deal, like I can't buy a Chelsea jersey. So yeah.
Oh dear, Mikey, you got one of the jerseys that you've been liking or disliking? So far?
I don't want to steal anyone's thunder. I'm not sure what's going on. I don't know. I think Man City's away kit is honestly, I know they've had some shocking kits in the past, but that away kit, the red and white, is right up there as one of the best kits I think they've ever had.
I
Ooh.
totally agree with that. That's
Yeah.
my pick as well. Yeah.
So you boys are both loving that. Anyone else think a little bit differently, or everyone's pretty much on the same wavelength that they like it?
What are our thoughts on the Newcastle away kit, aka Saudi Arabia?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Look, I reckon there's some really good kits in the league this year. I like Bournemouth. I like Palace. The Everton away kit, the pink one with the little squiggly diamonds on it. Even Everton's home kit
Oh.
is finally Everton have done a home kit that's just simple and classic rather than trying to do something too over the top. Yeah, I think there's a lot of good kits. Just hopefully get rid of all the crypto sponsors for you, Tommy.
And the gambling sponsors, yeah, both of those. Ugh.
Arsenal have just dropped their third kit, the pink one, which is sort of
Only 12 to go for the
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
before
Run
they
it back in
before they go
93.
retro. Yeah, mid-season
Yeah.
retro.
The Western Sydney Wanderers of the Premier League.
Another throwback to the bruised banana.
Fashion FC.
I got to say, honourable mention, not in the Premier League, but I think Norwich City have had the best kits they've potentially ever had in their existence this season.
Wow.
They're
It's a
home
shame,
and away.
shame they've got them in the championship, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
I'll keep them for next year when they're back in the Prem.
And then the next year when they're back in the championship.
Yeah.
Boys, yeah, exactly. I know not every team has released their all three of their playing strips yet, but I'm going to go early and say Palace have got the best combo or three jerseys. I reckon every one of those three jerseys absolutely slaps.
Oh, Tommy, you love a sash.
I can't
don't you?
disagree with that. Although
Squiggly sash.
squiggly line sash. it looks like a little toddler just hasn't been able to draw within the lines, to be honest.
But in a good way, right? All right, boys. Dave saves one. He wants to know which team is going to flop this year and get unexpectedly sucked into a relegation dogfight. Damo?
I don't know if there's a team that, much like Everton last year that kind of shocked everyone how poor they were. I mean, in my predictions, I haven't thought of a team that unexpectedly will be down there. I think all the ones down the bottom of the league will probably be expected to be there. I think Everton's probably included in that list to be in a fight again.
Yeah, I was going to say Everton, but is it really unexpected now?
Mm.
Or is this just like par for the course?
That's the ultimate insult, isn't it? Like, oh yeah, look, maybe 12 months ago I might have expected them like as being sort of edgy. It's an edgy prediction to say they'll get sucked into a relegation dogfight, and everyone's like, nah, they're just a shit team. Everyone knows it.
That's wild though, because like 2 seasons ago when they were like they signed James and they had that squad that was looking pretty
It was
stacked.
12 months ago.
Oh, was it? Jeez.
2 years? Yeah, maybe 2.
You're right.
Yeah.
Maybe it was 2 years ago. Sorry.
Well, like we were tipping them to be pushing top 6 and all the rest of it. It was the Everton Cup being the best of the rest, and look at them now.
The more I've thought about it, boys, I think Brentford might struggle. They didn't have a great end to last season. Christian Eriksen, coming in really massively boosted their chances of survival, and they were struggling before that. So they've lost
Second season syndrome.
Keep an eye out on them.
Boys, I know he's not on the pod right now, but I feel like at this point, if Jesse was on the pod, he would say that it's Southampton's turn to get sucked into the relegation.
That's a
They're
shame.
circling the drain again. I've got them finishing one spot above relegation.
I actually think this year might be their year to go
This is
down.
their year, I think.
The 1 year Jesse's not on the pod, I think this is the year that the broken clock's going to be right.
I want them to finish 17th just for Jesse, just to see his reaction.
Staying up
He'll be
on-
so triggered.
Staying up on goal difference on the final day. Oh wow, you can just imagine him just like steam coming out of his ears.
They're hanging onto the drain by a rogue hair.
Like hasn't noodle hair.
The drain is clogged with hair, and they're just like can't get down.
Jeez.
Vivid imagery there. Alrighty, boys. Moving on though, the World Cup is going to be in November in Qatar, which means the Premier League is going to stop for about 6 weeks. It also coincides with the 5 substitutes rule being made permanent as well. How much do you think these two things are going to affect the upcoming season, Mikey?
I'll have to defer to somebody else, I reckon.
Tommy,
Colby?
I reckon, the thing you always say about big interruptions and big breaks, like, when you've had leagues with winter breaks and things like that, the two things that you commonly hear is that the teams that are on top and in really good form don't want to stop. And the teams that are sliding, it's like a godsend for them because it could, interrupt the slide sometimes. They could get onto the training park and do what they need to do to sort of sort themselves out. So, we might see a bit of that. But that's probably what I would expect. But then you've got other things that can happen in major tournaments, like injuries to big players and things like that. And fatigue as well is another factor that could impact those teams with a lot of top players.
It's going to be a really interesting 6 weeks because you would assume that all the big clubs have got players going to the World Cup because they're all good players, but it doesn't necessarily work like that because not all the countries have qualified. For example, Haaland won't be going to the World Cup, so he'll be fresh coming off the back of that break when other people have played a lot of games throughout. So, and then there's also other players at lower clubs that really depend on those players who are also the star for their national team at a World Cup. So, you would also expect a lot of these clubs to be playing friendlies throughout the 6 weeks, which is going to be a really weird and interesting thing to watch, that clubs will be playing friendlies against teams that they expect to play later on in the year and sort of finding similar styles. So, I don't know. It's going to be a weird disruption to the league to have a World Cup. But, and the 5 substitutions rule as well, I think it's going to play a bigger role in the season than a lot of people have thought it might. Now it's sort of a tactical thing as well. And I think it really benefits the big clubs and hinders the smaller clubs in the fact that big clubs can now stack more players in squads and have more depth because they can keep more players happy by getting them more game time. Whereas previously, if there's a player that wasn't playing as much, they had to go to another club to play. They can get more time at a bigger club now. So, just hinders smaller clubs, I guess you would say, in making some signings probably.
I also think it changes the actual game itself because, you can sometimes have 10 different guys on the pitch that, hadn't started. So it really changes momentum of games and flows of games. So I think as a viewer, it can be really exciting, or it can actually, games can fizzle out because, it's like a preseason friendly, with the last 10 minutes with, a lot of guys on the pitch that haven't played, had a chance to play into the game. And, so there's that aspect as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, I think, George, and I think we're possibly also likely to see extra minutes for young players and stuff like that as well, which is going to make, I guess, an interesting time for them too.
It shouldn't really affect the Serie A though, so
true. I was like, huh? What? What's that got to do with it? And then I remembered, yep, okay, gotcha. Yep, sorry, I'm about. There's a little bit of lag. Yeah, that's alrighty, boys. Finally, before we get into team by team previews, there's one thing I want to make sure that we all get up on tape, and that's mentioning who our respective boys are. Probably the most important thing that we get out there on the pod is everyone naming who their boy is or boys for the season, so that no one can claim someone else's boy sort of midway through the season. We get this on the tapes nice and early up front. Colby, you wanna go first for who your boys are?
Mate, it's going to be no surprise. My boys haven't changed too much over the years. I'm going big. I'm going as big as MEB's Bundas. He's still my boy, even though he didn't really fire last season. And Dwight McNeil, pleased to see him, stay in the Prem by going to Everton. Give him the Ballon d'Or now. He's going to flourish, getting a lot of chances, whipping balls into DCL. So, it's got to be those two for me.
excuse me, tasty. Damo, what about you, mate?
I'm stacking my boys with Jesse Marsh's American Army. So I've got Tyler Adams. I've got Chris Richards from Crystal Palace. I've got Tim Ream from Fulham. just give me the US national team and let's go for it.
US men's national team.
Yeah, that's right. And the
USMT.
other one I want to throw in there is he probably won't see 1 second of game time throughout the season, but Tyrese Francois from Fulham, the young Aussie. So he's my boy. It's good to have an Aussie in the Premier League.
Sorry, going to have to interrupt you there. I think
I got
Shannon's
in
already
first.
claimed.
Sorry,
that's we're going to need
afraid,
to. I think Shah's got in before you, Damo.
I think
and
if you
there's a
look
date
at
stamp and everything.
look at the shared
5/26.
document. Look at the
Damo's
shared
running the lag
document
as well.
for the notes. You can see that I put in my boy Tyrese Francois. Anyway, I'll let you have it, Shannon. You can have it. I'll go with the US men's national team. Let's go.
Maybe we'll have to televise like a fight to the death over whose boy Tyrese Francois is.
Look, I'm just going for the US guys, so I'm Sal's boy for the year. That's all I want.
Oh wow. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a love affair. I think they're going on between Sal and Damo. I think Sal, it sounds like you've got like a bit of a thing, like a teacher-student sort of like crush going on there. So I don't know what's going on. It's
I plead the fifth, like the Americans would say.
Defense.
This pod has gone into areas that I did not expect it to go. Mikey, what about you, mate? You got a couple of boys up your sleeve?
Yeah. Well, my boy to look out for is Joe Aribo. He's joined Southampton from Rangers, scored in the Europa League final, and I reckon he's going to revolutionise the midfield a bit in Southampton, or at least I hope he does, because he's my boy. I'm going behind him now.
I reckon he'd be Jesse's anti-boy, so it's going to be really cute to see what happens, whether or not he actually blows up, or whether or not Southampton end up getting relegated and this bloke doesn't play a minute. So,
either option is just as valid.
Yeah, the only Southampton player Jesse can tolerate is Ward Prowse because of his love of golf, I think.
Yeah, both pretty handy with a one wood. George, what about you, mate? Who's your boy?
Well, I'm hoping this guy stays in the Premier League, but as of now, he's currently back, and it's big Adama Traore. He flatters to deceive, and he had a stint at Barca. Hopefully, he learned a few things, and hopefully Wolves can keep him, or he stays in the Premier League at least. So,
scored one goal in his spell at Barca against the mighty A-League All-Stars.
Got found out.
On the topic of Adama Traore, I saw a tweet just about 5 minutes before I jumped on for this pod, and I'm not sure if it was legit or not, but it was purportedly Adama Traore, as in the Wolves one, in a supermarket in the UK, and he'd been left behind for the Wolves preseason tour. I don't know where they went, but he was wearing a match-worn Adama Traore jersey in the supermarket.
Good.
I don't know if it was legit, but it was spectacular. I thought that's what we need to see is like more professional footballers, like elite footballers wearing match-worn kits with their own name and number on it in the supermarket.
It's a bit like you going down to the supermarket in your Urge kit, Tommy.
Oh yeah, well,
in your West Ham close.
Yeah. All right. Finally, my boys, I'm going big on Brennan Johnson at Forest this year. Blew up and did really well last year in the championship, and I reckon even if Forest don't do particularly well, I think he's going to do really well for Forest. So, him and I'm going to go early on the new Zlatan. Gigi Scamacca signed to West Ham. He can be my boy. He's 23, so. I think he's going to be more Zlatan than Allaire at West Ham. So keep an eye out for him. He's gonna be interesting, I reckon.
Are you going to kit curse him, Tommy? Get the name on the back of the shirt that you order?
Not this time. I think
Oh.
the kit curse. I'm not confident that it's been broken yet. Plus, I don't like either of this season's kits, so I'm steering clear both of them. And look, I'm not confident the kit curse has been broken. So yeah,
Wise.
yeah. Alrighty. Let's before we crack on to the team by team previews, I just want to give a plug to our annual FPL league. So the last couple of years we've been running a fantasy Premier League mini league. Last year we had 58 entrants, combined total prize pool of $580. It's just $10 to enter. So, look, if you're keen to join in the fun, feel free to message us on Twitter, Facebook, or email. That's mtagpodcast@gmail.com. If you're keen, look, the more the merrier. And look, all of the prize pool is generated just through the entry fees, which we pay out in full. So there's monthly prizes, overall prizes. Like I said, prize pool of $580 went off last year, which was a lot of fun. Plus, it gives us something to talk about on the pod too. Colby?
And Tommy, I just recommend to any listeners who want to enter, you don't have to pay the entry fee to enter into MTAG FPL, but recommend you do, because what we saw last year with the monthly prize winners was there was like sometimes like the third or fourth place, like the third or fourth top scorer for the month was actually walking away with the prize because people at the top hadn't paid their entry fee. So you have to pay your entry fee to be eligible to win the prize. So yeah, if that's appealing to you, or if you're halfway decent at FPL and you're not just donating like myself, yeah, recommend you do it.
But glad you got out early.
You can also compete with G-Man and I to see who finishes last.
We need a prize for that, Tommy.
No, see, and there's deliberately a reason why there isn't a last place
just
prize, because
people in and out and go negative.
Exactly.
Oh,
in the final round, you can tank. Exactly. And I'm certain someone would do that if it meant getting their money back or making money out of it. There's always someone out there trying to game the system, you know. So, but look, like I said, feel free to get in touch with us. The more the merrier, and it's great to compete against us and all of the other punters that are part of the MTAG community. But look, it is time to start our team by team previews. This is where we go through each team. We talk about sort of the ins and outs, what fans should be excited about, and so on and so forth, to do with the team and their chances for the upcoming season. So, look, we're going to go through them in alphabetical order. And first up, of course, is Arsenal with Colby. Take it away, mate.
Thanks, Tommy. Arsenal, so bit of a shaky start to the season last season, but Arteta's Arsenal finished fifth with a reasonably solid back half of the season. Arsenal fans will feel that they're still clearing some of the bad apples out of the squad. But the rebuild of the past couple of seasons, I think, seems to be making progress. So Arsenal are going into this season primed for an all-or-nothing season. You can catch that on Prime Video. It's releasing in August. And also, Prime is the hydration partner of Arsenal.
Lots of Prime at Arsenal.
In case you were wondering. So,
That's KSI and Logan Paul's Prime.
KSI and Logan Paul's hydration drink of choice. So, Arsenal are going into the season in full-on meme mode, you'd have to say. And that's just where we like to see them. Big ins at Arsenal. We mentioned at the top of the podcast, Gabby Jesus is the marquee signing for them. £45 million from Manchester City. Comes in as a centre forward. He's going to be the main man there, or at least at this stage, that's what it's looking like. But you've also got Fabio Vieira from Porto has come in, as well as Alexander Zinchenko, also from Man City. As well as strong rumours of Yuri Tillemans from Leicester. That's not firmed up yet, but would be a fantastic signing for them if it comes off, because, of course, they've got some issues in their midfield. Outs, Lacazette has been released, and young bad boy Matteo Guendouzi has gone off to Marseille. That move's been made permanent now, I believe. And, big asterisk around Thomas Partey with... some sexual assault allegations. So unclear about what his status is going to be this season. So I've put him in the outs column because I'm assuming that the club's going to suspend him while these allegations are being dealt with in much the same way as we've seen with too many other players in the Prem when these kind of
Colby-
things crop up.
Colby, can we put Kieran Tierney in the out section, just considering we expect him to be injured for about 90% of the season?
Yeah, yeah. I think we can strike him off. Yeah. So I think that's part of the thinking around getting Zinchenko in at left back, because they're just accepting that they're probably going to have Kieran Tierney for about 3 to 5 games. If you're an Arsenal fan, you should be excited about Jesus taking the wheel. He's looked pretty good in pre-season, but you'd be nervous about the midfields. You'd be really sweating on this Yuri Tielemans signing, because they're a bit shaky in midfield. You've still got Granit Xhaka kicking around, like El Neni, Lokonga. I mean, it's there's not too many all-star names in that midfield, so they'd really be looking for something there, and they'd be a bit nervous going into the season. One to watch, Gabby Jesus, of course, has to do it. Go on, Tommy.
Yeah, look, I just want to get your thoughts on whether or not you think Gabby Jesus is nailed on as the starting number 9.
Yeah, I think he is. He's been banging goals in the preseason. I think he's going to start in the middle. He's going to be the main man now. They've of course got rid of Lacazette and Aubameyang.
Surely
No one else. There's no one else, Colby.
So who else is going to do it? Swagriel
surely
Martinelli? I don't know.
Surely the recruitment staff would be crucified if Jesus doesn't do well.
Yeah, I think so. Let's see how many miracles he can work up front, because Arsenal are certainly going to need it. So a successful season, of course, for Arsenal. You'd say every season, a successful season has to be top 4 and a good cup run. They're in the Europa League again, so they'd want to see a good run in that competition. And fans will be full of hope after a good transfer window and that strong pre-season.
Do you have any predictions about the ratings on Amazon Prime for All or Nothing, Colby?
Well, I mean, it All or Nothing is sort of covering last season, the 21-22 season. So, I mean, it was a bit of an average season. It was not super controversial in that they were like fighting relegation, but they weren't really challenging for anything either. So,
well, except for the first 4 rounds. Remember, they were in the relegation zone, I think, after round 4, weren't they?
Yeah, but
guys, I don't know if you saw there was sort of a trailer released about this, and it was a pretty good sort of team talk from Mikel Arteta, which was a trailer which I really liked. But what I did want to say was I saw a tweet that said, "Show us the bit where you found out about Thomas Partey and let him play anyway."
Oh.
Yep. So hopefully they'll do the right thing this season and suspend him, as these allegations seem to be becoming more and more serious. And
You'd hope so.
While the justice system sort of takes its course, you'd think he would be sidelined. But yeah, we've seen stranger things have happened. I'm predicting that they will finish 4th. They will get their top 4 goal. But it'll be a little bit bittersweet, because I think Tottenham are going to finish above them, so they won't love that. Kit rating. So, I mean, we've talked about the Arsenal kits, and as usual, Arsenal are up there with some of the best kits of the season in typical, Western Sydney Wanderers of the Premier League fashion. And fashion is key, because these kits are just, we know there's going to be more of these, but they're pretty nice. I mean, we've been treated to the premium Adidas designs with the sort of little Thunderbolt collar on the main kit, and then you've got the black kit with like the Arsenal letters sort of stealthed into the background, and then you've got a nice pink number as well. So I'll give them 9 meme club fashion brands out of 10.
Fantastic.
And sorry, Tommy, just before I round off on the kits, the collars, I'd be remiss. Jesse would be on to me if I didn't mention the collars. They've got something for everyone there. You've got a crew neck, you've got a classic collar, and you've got a V-neck. So like whatever collar you're into, Arsenal, like they know that they want to just reach as many collar markets as possible. So
whatever collar and whatever color.
That's it. You can get it all.
Diversify.
They really collared every corner of the market, haven't they?
The collar wars are back.
Yes, they are. Thanks, Colby. And look, you're up again with Aston Villa. So take it away, mate.
Yep, thanks, Tommy. I'm going to keep going with Villa here. So after all the hype of last season, Villa definitely underachieved, finishing 14th last season when many, including myself, were going big on Villa and predicting them to really be pushing into the top half. But their big signings, Emi Buendia, Leon Bailey, and even Ingsy didn't quite fire. So, but they've got, I feel like they've got that season out of their system now, that post-Grealish new manager season dip. They've got that's behind them now, and they'll be looking to find some consistency in form. They've had a bit of a patchy pre-season with those few matches. We've seen them. People here in Australia will have seen some of their matches, that 2-2 against United. They got up 1-0 over Leeds, and, big game, very hard fought 1-0 win over the Brisbane Roar. So that was that was a real highlight of their preseason, I would say. Big ins. They've of course we know they've made the Coutinho signing permanent for a reported fee of 17 million, which is an absolute bargain. He is 30 now, but the kind of form he showed last season, if he can continue that this season, that'll be huge for them. Babacar Kamara, defensive midfielder, they got him from Marseille on a free. But the other really big one to look at is Diego Carlos, centre-back coming from Sevilla, £26 million. He was a Brazilian youth international. He's got over 100 appearances for Sevilla. He looked very solid in that game against United in the pre-season. And he's got really big raps. Gerrard has been talking him up all throughout the pre-season. And he's been named vice captain. He's not stepped a foot into Villa Park, and he's already been named a vice captain. So I think, Stevie G really sees something in him. So fans should be excited about that, excited about those signings, which are really going to sort of strengthen them up. Hopefully their Leon Bailey injury merchant has got all of his injuries out of his system now, and he'll be linking up with Emi Buendia and Watkins, and Ingsy will bounce back to the Ingsy that we know and love, and I think that will mean that Villa will show a lot more consistency. So Villa fans should be excited about that. But one thing they should be nervous about is any dressing room tensions in the preseason distracting from a strong start to the season. There's been announcements in the past couple of weeks or very recently where John McGinn's actually been named the captain of the club, and it's been reasonably well publicised that Steven Gerrard and Tyrone Mings don't really see eye to eye. Mings, of course, is still in the squad, but he's not even been named as a vice captain. So it appears that he might be getting pushed out. So we don't want to see, or Villa fans wouldn't want to see that sort of interfering with their start to the season.
Well, John McGinn might be one of the best captains to have. He showed in the preseason he's not afraid to run through a few young people.
Yeah, that's right. No nonsense and
no, not at all.
Big physicality from McGinn. But one to watch. It has to be Diego Carlos, given the big raps he's been given from the manager, and presumably he's going to be the one as centre back, sort of pushing Mings out for that starting spot. You could almost bet that. After the big pump up that Stevie G has given him, that he'll be throwing him into the starting 11 ahead of Mings. So there's big pressure on him to perform. What a successful season for Villa would be a top half finish and a decent cup run as well. I'm predicting that they'll improve on last season, but not quite break into the top half. They'll finish 11th.
Ooh.
Now onto the kits. Finally, we've had Kappa out and Castore in. Don't know about that change in kit manufacturer because we're big fans of Kappa on this podcast. But you've got a standard Villa fare, the claret and blue, with a bit of a chevron down the middle. Sure, subtle V design, if you want to call it that. We've got a bit of an inverse on the away kit, like a more of a solid blue with some sort of claret highlights around the collar and on the sleeves. And then the away kit has got the black with the gold sponsor and logos. Looks decent, but we haven't seen any good quality images of that yet. But the key to these kits, boys, is our favourite kit sponsor, Kazoo.
You know what? I want to give a shout out to Kazoo. They've given a little bit more context to their sponsorship this season. They've added a little little what we are underneath because we were so
Wow.
confused. But
Yeah.
they just had the kazoo for a couple of years. Now we've got some context, and I love to see it.
And the
Search,
concept
drive,
drive,
smile.
smile.
Yeah.
So very, very
They're
Love that.
expanding their fan base from more than a game to elsewhere.
But I've got to say, Kazoo, they just don't look the same quality as Kappa and some of the other kit manufacturers. They do look a bit cheap with this sort of screen printed badge and things like that. Like, I think it's just a looking a little bit more cheap, some of these ones. So I'm giving them 6 online car retailers out of 10.
I'm really enjoying the female boomer vibes of search, drive, smile, like live, love, laugh. It's like it's like a lonely old lady watching like reruns of something on late night TV with a third glass of red pill and ice.
Keeping up with the Kardashians reruns.
That's so grim. Oh, and yeah, look, I'm going early. Castore, worst kit manufacturer, at least in the Premier League, if not sort of further afield as well.
Yeah, not a fan.
Yeah. All right. Next up is AFC Bournemouth with George. Go on, mate.
Yeah, boys, the one we've all been waiting for. So in terms of where they finished last season, they were only 2 points behind Fulham in the Championship. So they had a very good season, led by manager and nominee for best looking manager Scott Parker, or at least best dressed manager. We'll see how he goes when he's sweating in the Premier League after Bournemouth start to struggle. Interestingly, 7 of the players who were in their Premier League were featured in their last game in the Premier League or in the squad are still at the club, and a little bit of trivia I picked up in my research. They're owned by Maxim Demin, so he's a Russian businessman who bought the club in 2019. Yeah, and he acquired full ownership in 2019. But he rarely watches the games because he thinks he's bad luck. So he never turns up because it's his genuine belief that he doesn't want to curse Bournemouth. So there you go.
George, does it trigger you that Bournemouth are allowed to keep their Russian owner, but Chelsea weren't allowed to? What's Denham's ties to Putin?
I didn't go that in depth, but now you raise it, Colby. Yeah, I think I will do a deep dive and maybe reach out to the British government and see what they can do. See if they can be bought by some Americans as well.
Maybe Max has been busy watching the Russian war, and that's what he's taking it. And he thinks he's bad luck. And
Gee whiz.
As he slowly takes over the club.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. They've had some. They've brought some players into the club. Ryan Fredericks, as Tommy will know, a solid defender from West Ham.
Sure.
A couple of others. Joe Rothwell from Blackburn. I think they've just signed Marcus Taverner from Borough. Wowee. That was breaking news on Marcus Taverner there.
Forgive me for my first can opening of MTAG.
Yeah, I agree.
Fizzling out like Bournemouth in the first half of the season.
So the Gary Cahill's been released in a couple of other squad players, so they're sort of keeping the same sort of squad going forward into the Premier League with those additions I mentioned. What fans should be excited about? Obviously, Scotty Parker's attire on the sideline. Dom Solanke, who managed 3 goals in his first campaign in the Premier League. He's since killed it in the Championship, 44 goals in 85 appearances. So, can he do it in the Premier League? We'll see. David Brooks making a return from his cancer scare. A few years ago, he was one of the brightest young things in the Premier League. So we'll see if he can kick back on this season. Nervous about, I'd say Philip Billing. Just makes me nervous watching him play.
It's a walking red card.
Just the length of his forehead makes me nervous.
Yeah,
that's right. So for them to really survive, Lloyd Kelly and Chris Meehan at the back are going to have to be strong. Along with Ryan Fredericks slotting in there, and watch out for Jefferson Lerma. He was brought in on a big transfer a couple of seasons ago, and
speaking of walking red cards, George.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, where I think they'll finish, boys, I don't think they're going to survive. I think they'll finish second last. I don't know if anyone else thinks they're going to make it, but yeah, I don't think so. Just with what they've brought in and what they're relying on to stay up.
I reckon between the two of them, I reckon Philip Billing and Lerma can crack 20 yellow cards in a season.
Yeah.
Well, with at least with the 5 subs, the minute they get the yellow, that they'll start getting dragged, I'd assume, before.
So 10 minutes in.
10 minutes in. I think they've got some quite interesting kits, boys. I've pasted them in the group. So the home kit does a sort of a black sort of squiggly line, three black squiggly lines with the red base and the black sort of sleeve. So I quite like the home kit. I'm going to give that one an 8 out of 10 because it's sort of pretty pleasing on the eye. But then you look at the away kit, and I don't really know what to say about it. It's a sort of light blue number with like a fern or a palm tree in the
Looks like a milkshake cup.
It feels like this should be Central Coast Mariners away kit.
Yeah, I'm just confused about.
If this one had long sleeves, it gives me the real like Adelaide United away kit that looked like a fishing shirt,
top.
right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the away kit. Really not sure, but I want to see it in person. I want to see it live and see how it looks. But
the crew neck looks so tight that it's almost a turtleneck too. So I'm not really sure on that.
Like a skivvy.
Are there many palm trees in Bournemouth, or I'm not sure what they're going for?
It's near the beach, so it's a beachside area. So I'll go and investigate, boys. Leave that one with me, and I'll come back.
Thanks, mate.
All right, so deep dive on denim and investigate the palm trees at Bournemouth.
More
There are your
questions.
2 action items, George.
More questions than answers in this review. So
we're sending out the minutes at the end of this podcast as well. So. I know Bournemouth are in like the south of England, but it's a bit of a stretch to put palm trees on their kit. Maybe Britain's become tropical sort of in the last
global warming,
2 weeks.
boys.
Yeah.
Global warming.
Very good. All right. Thanks, George. Next up, Brentford with Damo.
Yeah, we'll get stuck into Brentford again. I previewed them last year and was pretty excited to see them in the Premier League, given, the story around their owner and all that Moneyball sort of football, which, I think, again, we were talking about it earlier and George said that there was a couple of shrewd signings last year that sort of buoyed them to where they finished 13th in the league. The one particularly Ericsson at the back end of the season really lifted them. So that's a huge loss for them. I think that was probably their main goal over the offseason was to keep Ericsson. Unfortunately, they couldn't. He's gone to Manchester United on a free transfer because he was off contract, obviously. But they have brought in a few good signings. Ben Mee has come in at the back from Burnley on a free transfer, which shores up a couple of defensive gaps that they had last season. They brought in Aaron Hickey, who's I think he's Scottish, actually, who played in Serie A last year. They paid $16.5 million for him, which again shores up a left back spot that they had a lot of issue with last year. So hopefully they can get some consistent minutes out of those two. And then a live wire they brought in from Hull, Keane Lewis Porter. So he scored 13 goals and 3 assists last year in sort of his breakout season in the Championship. He's only young, and there was a lot of clubs in the Premier League that were after him, but obviously Brentford could offer him more minutes really than anyone else probably. So some good ins.
Damo, just on the topic of Lewis Porter, I really rated him, and I know West Ham were close to signing him as well, but ended up chasing Lingard sort of just into the sunset. I'm going to go early, and I'm going to name him as one of my boys as well. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I think he'll have a good season, and we've seen that Brentford traditionally have done their research well into recruiting players, and I think he really suits what they'll be trying to do. Which is exactly what the fans will be excited about. They've got a really attacking intent to their side. They like to play football and move it forward. They've made some good transfer business to fill the holes, like I said. And I think they'd be nervous about what we said before, second season syndrome. Is it a thing? Can Brentford avoid it? They did surprise a lot of people last year, and they would be nervous, like I said, about losing Christian Eriksen, and one, not having replaced him yet, two, let alone with anyone anywhere near his quality if they can replace him in that sort of in that number 10 role, someone pulling the strings. It could come down to Brentford having to rely on another good piece of business in January to sort of buoy them to a good run in the back end of the season. I think they're a team that will benefit from the break of the World Cup. It'll give them an opportunity to sort of recalculate and do a lot of research into who they should sign in the second half of the season. So I think that'll help them, that World Cup break. My one to watch was Lewis Porter from Hull. He's Tommy's boy. He got in early, so I can't claim him, but I think he's going to have a good season. A successful season for Brentford is just staying up, and I think they will. I think they'll finish 16th, but I think they'll be in a real relegation battle for most of the season, but they'll get it done late on in the year. And talking about Brentford kits, interestingly, are the only team in the Premier League this year to wear exactly the same kit that they wore last season, both home and away. They did that on purpose. They wanted fans to be able to use the kit that they bought in the Premier League last year to be the kit in the Premier League this year. Don't know if they only plan to be in the league for 2 years or what that is. But no, I think it's pretty good, because I think we used to see in years gone by a kit every few years, and then it went to a new kit every 2 years. And now it just seems to be, we've even got multiple kits in a season. So I do like that from Brentford, and the fans can wear the updated kit this year from last year.
Was it intentional?
A Brentford fan mentioned to me that there was some rumours circulating that someone forgot to put an order in.
I actually did read an article that was about how a lot of Premier League clubs might not have their kits ready for the start of the season, just due to supply issues.
Dave, deep in the Athletic in the last 2 weeks, haven't you, mate?
That was a good article, that one.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know the exact article you're talking about.
Given Tommy's login credentials a real workout.
That's so on trend for the Athletic as well. Like, here's a deep dive into how the supply chain issues that some non-league teams are facing to do with their kits arriving in time.
Athletic love a deep dive.
They talked to somebody from Mitre. Whose kit's made by Mitre still? Bentley Greens and Dandenong Thunder.
I thought they only made balls.
Yeah.
But our balls,
So
I
that's
think,
Brentford.
so next up, thanks, Dave, mate. Next up is Brighton with George. Go on, George.
Yeah, boys. So Brighton sort of, if we cast that mind back to last season, finished 9th, and it was quite a good season for them, given their troubles in years prior. They actually kicked their campaign off with 4 wins from their opening 5 matches, and they scored more goals than ever before. So they've always had problems scoring. So they scored 42 goals. So that was the most they've ever done in the Premier League. They lost 4 league games and drew 8 out of 10 at one point. So they ended the campaign with only 11 defeats. So you can call them the draw specialists last year. Managed by Graham Potter, of course. Inns. So basically, I'm going to butcher this name, but please forgive me.
Go on.
Moise Casiano. So he's a replacement for Basuma, a promising midfielder. Simon Adringa as well has come in. So the outs, as I mentioned, Basuma is a massive out, I think, going to Tottenham. And potential departure of one of my boys, Mark Cucurella, who looks like he's handled a transfer request in, and Pep's really sniffing around the wing back there, and he had an excellent season last year. What fans should be excited about? Obviously, building on last season's top half finish. Neil Maupay and Leandro Trossard. So 8 goals apiece last year. So if they're going to kick on, they're going to have to score more than 8. I like Alexis McAllister as well. Obviously, the Argentine attacking midfielder with a very Scottish name. For them to actually kick on, they've got to score more. So especially at home, 19 goals in 19 games at home and 22 points out of 57. So that's where they sort of let themselves down. And if you remember, they sort of slowed down in chunks of the season there. One to watch, boys. Keep an eye on this. I'm telling you right now. Post World Cup, England. Graham Potter.
Oof.
Brighton should be worried.
As in Graham Potter will get the England job.
Yeah.
Woo. Is that your bold claim for the season? 'Cause
That's bold.
yeah, it's coming from left field.
Boys, that's what I'm telling you. So in terms of one to watch, the Casiado coming in to replace Basuma, I think that they've got to really rely on him, given the Basuma's consistency and quality. What's a successful season? They've got to finish in the top half if they want to be successful, or if they want to have a successful season built on last year. Where do I think they'll finish? I think they'll probably finish somewhere between 10th to 12th. So it'll all depend on whether they can dominate up front and capitalize on the chances they create. What do we think of their kits, boys? I think it's pretty average from Brighton, actually. The home kit's just a variation on a theme, really, with the big American Express sponsorship and the sort of round collar with the gold tinge, and the away kit is just orange, just plain orange. So
Well, I know
Like
it's
orange.
orange,
It's
but
just an
why do they have to
orange.
put the letter H on it?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the H stands for horrible.
yeah,
It
Very good.
reminds me heaps of Newcastle's, I think, home kit from last season or the
The
season
number
before.
4.
Yeah. And once
Yeah.
you saw it, you couldn't unsee it, and it just
Yeah.
it was just ingrained into my head.
at least make it a B, right?
Yeah.
But,
Georgia, I'm sorry to do this to you, but I want to give a shout out to Dennis Undav, who Brighton signed in January, so 6 months ago. They signed him from Union SG. I don't know what Saint Gear, some Belgian name. But he was signed from the Belgian league 6 months ago. He ended up finishing the season off there at that same club and scored 26 league goals in the Belgian league last year. It's looking like he's going to stay on at Brighton this season, though, and I think he not sure if he's going to take Neil Maupay's spot, but based off of that form, you'd think that
I'm hoping
Potter
he'll
will
come in.
Yeah, exactly. Given the goal scoring problems that they've had for the last couple of years, so I think that's going to be really interesting to see how he goes. He was the top scorer in the Belgian First Division the season just gone. So if he actually finds if he's a routine weighted goal for Brighton, he could really sort of propel Brighton into the European slots and could make for a really exciting season for them after they were kind of doing everything right except for scoring a lot of goals. So one to watch there.
It's massive,
And
Tommy,
should-
with the Belgian scouting. Didn't know.
George,
and
should
auditing
we-
everyone's notes as well.
Should we also be watching the Paraguayan second striker, Julio Enciso from Libertad Asunción?
Daniel Welbecker.
He's an 18-year-old kid, but he's come on a pretty big fee, and looks like he could get some game time as well.
Very good, boys. Very good. And are we tipping a top half for them? Is that what we're saying?
Oh, I think so. But I mean, what's your prediction? 10th?
10th to 12th. Giving
10?
myself
Ooh,
some wiggle
10 to
room.
12. Okay, all right. Where have I got them?
I've got
George?
them in 11th, so I'm splitting you in half there,
Oh,
George.
yeah, I think I've got them 12th as well. So I'm still not over the injustice that they did to Matty Ryan. I don't care what anyone says.
And you were doing an Aaron Moore. You're deserting them, aren't you, Colby?
That's it. I'm disappearing to China.
All right. Next up, we're going to be sticking with George, who's going to be previewing Chelsea.
Excellent. Yeah, boys. Big sort of preseason at Chelsea with Todd and the Dodgers crew taking over. finished last season third. Thomas Tuchel, obviously the manager. So last year, despite finishing third, boys, there were 19 points off the pace. So there was a bit of a gap in class between them and, your Liverpools and your Cities. So what have they done? They've massive outs, Antonio Rudiger, the rock at the back for Chelsea for the last few seasons. Christensen's out as well. He's gone to Barcelona. Romelu Lukaku, has anyone heard of him? Yeah, he's gone to Inter Milan on loan. Basically, Chelsea have shipped him out, which is an interesting move given they've brought no other forwards in. So
Get Ronaldo in.
Yeah, no, this might be good for shirt sales. Not much else.
Timo Werner, George, this is his year.
There's rumours that Timo's going out as well. So there's a lot of question marks about who's actually going out. So you've got Timo, you've got Hakim Ziyech, you've got rumours about Azpilicueta, Alonso. So if all those guys are gone, it's going to be a pretty thin squad. Given we've only brought in Raheem Sterling and Koulibaly from Napoli, who's looks like a straight swap for Rudiger, really. So obviously we've talked about Sterling, and everyone knows what he brings to the club. The other ones to talk about, boys, Conor Gallagher. He had a massive season at Crystal Palace. They're keeping him on by the looks of things at Chelsea, and I'm looking forward to him, getting some game time and linking up with Mason Mount in that sort of Chelsea midfield. The other one, still a question mark, is probably Armando Broja, who had a good season at Southampton last year. Whether he stays on or not still remains to be seen, but he'd be a good sort of backup forward if Chelsea want to actually have a striker, which is still a question mark, really. Obviously, what are we nervous about for Chelsea? Definitely goals. I think if they can bring in another defender or two, it looks like with Koulibaly and Thiago Silva, Ben Chilwell coming back from his knee injury, the defense, and obviously Mendy in goals. I think they can cover over the cracks in defence, but going forward, they're going to need a lot more goals from their wingers if we don't have a striker. So that's probably where I'm at. A bit nervous this season at the moment. Haven't had the greatest pre-season. Obviously, getting done by Arsenal created a few headlines. Tuchel, saying in the press that we need more signings and we're not ready for the season to start is concerning. So we'll have to see where they end up with their transfers in order to kind of see where the dust settles. But I am definitely looking forward to Conor Gallagher and Benny Chilwell, who was in absolutely cracking form before he got injured last year. And it's always good to see the development of Reece James, who made that position his own last season, and he's very versatile as well. So Tuchel might play him, in the back three or keep him out as a wing back. And it's always exciting to see who of the Chelsea squad's going to go out on loan. So.
Who are Vitesse going to have this season?
Yeah, who are Vitesse or Christian Pulisic, maybe. We'll see. But,
one of my boys.
Which promoted club is Loftus-Cheek going to go to?
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, I think he's going to be pushed out of the squad given
Shocked
Conor Gallagher's emergence, and the other one who's looking likely to go is Ross Barkley. Does anyone remember him? But yeah, he
forgot he was still there. To be honest,
he got some game time late last season, actually. But I don't think Tuchel trusts him, and Everton are sniffing around. So where do I think Chelsea will finish? I think they'll just sneak into the top four, but they're going to have to sort out their forward line, I think, for that to happen. And Thomas Tuchel's going to have a very good year, rotating the squad and the wingers to produce the goals we need to keep pace with the top few teams. Kits now, boys. Kits, we've discussed them a little bit, but the home kit is a standard blue number with the sort of aqua kind of collar, with I think it's a button there, but it may not be. But it's pretty ugly, and the less said about that, the better. And then we mentioned the away kit, the 3 kit, with some random aqua stripy number along the middle, and that matches the collar. So at least I give them 1 point for consistency because they've brought in something from their home kit into their away kit.
It almost looks like waves, like from above, like sort of going into the beach or something like that.
Yeah.
Across the waves.
Yeah,
London
yeah.
not known for
What
its
is it?
beaches, so
What is
And
it meant to
if,
be? Is it meant to be the logo in sky blue?
it's some sort of retro callback to something.
It just looks like it's inspired by their sponsor. Like all these clubs have got like a nod to their history, and Chelsea are just look, we're gonna just have a nod to our sponsors. Chelsea are just respecting the money.
We lost a bit of money last year with the sales, so let's try and recoup as much as possible.
Look, I think as far as Chelsea goes, I think if they're worried about midfield options, I think they've only got themselves to blame after releasing Danny Drinkwater the last couple of years. I think, I think he could have done a job for them. But look, all right, thanks, George. Next up is going to be Crystal Palace and Damo previewing them. Go on, Damo.
Yeah, look, Palace finished 12th last year, surprised a lot of people. I think there was a lot of people in here that were predicting Vieira would be the first to go and that Palace could likely go down or at least be in a relegation battle. And I guess that's one of the things Palace fans can be really excited about is sort of what Vieira has been able to do in sort of changing the culture of the club and the way they play football. Now, possession-based game, exciting to watch. It brings their wingers into the game and lets Zaha do his thing. So I think they'd be really excited about that. They finished 13 points clear of the relegation zone in the end, which is pretty safe at the end of the day and a great season. And I think they'd also be really looking forward to the opening day of the season. Tommy, you called it the Patrick Vieira derby. It's at Selhurst Park. I think Arsenal are there to be beaten. And we've seen that then they have lost a couple of opening game fixtures in their last few seasons. And I think Palace will really be up for that. And obviously Vieira will really be up for it. And I reckon Palace fans will be really looking forward to that game. They've had a couple of ins and outs in the off season. Cheku Kouyaté left. No, Cheku Kouyaté left. He was he was going as a defensive midfielder or a centre half in last season. And it was strange that they didn't re-sign him because I thought he was quite a useful, dynamic player across a couple of different positions. But I guess to replace him, they brought in Cheick Doucouré from Lens for 20 million. And then Chris Richards, one of my boys from Bayern Munich. So they had now a designated centre half and a designated defensive midfielder that sort of, you would hope, do Kouyaté's role better individually. So I think they've replaced that there. One thing I don't think they have replaced was the guy George was just talking about, Conor Gallagher in midfield. Had a really good season last year for Palace and was sort of instrumental in a lot of their possession-based football that they had been playing, and they haven't been able to replace him. I was speaking to a Palace fan during the week who said that they're still hoping to do a little bit more business and bring in someone similar to Gallagher in that midfield, a real ball-playing sort of creative player. So I guess we'll see. And I guess that's something they'd be quite nervous about as well is a bit of a hangover from their success of last season, being fans of players maybe being a little bit overconfident going into the season with high expectations, thinking that improvement should be what happens. We often see when teams have, a surprise successful season that they struggle to back it up. So I think that's what they might be worried about. And the other thing that they really struggled with last year was defending set pieces. They conceded 15 goals off set pieces. Only 3 teams in the league conceded more than that, and I think 2 of them went down, and Leeds was the one who didn't go down. And we all know how poor they are defensively. That was something that needed to be addressed. I think bringing in Chris Richards is really strong defender. I think he's about 6'3", 6'4". He really throws his weight around. He scores a few goals going forward in set pieces as well, so that'll help them. But yeah, that's something that you probably it's more drilling on the training ground than it would be signing someone to fill a gap there. So that's something they'd be nervous about. I've got a couple players to watch this season. So Eberechi Eze, I've probably butchered that name, but we were all talking about him this time last year, that he was going to have a breakout season in the Premier League. And we saw a few glimpses of games, but he had injury halted season. And I think with a full preseason under his belt, and he's fit and ready to go, and this sort of new style of football that Palace are playing, will really let the wingers come into the game. And Zaha takes a lot of the pressure off letting other wingers sort of do a little bit less and have a little bit more freedom. And I think he'll sort of shine because he gets that freedom. And the other one is Malcolm Ebioe. He's also a winger, signed from Derby. He played about, I think it was a dozen or so games for Derby last year in the Championship. Rooney brought him through when there was a whole bunch of injury issues, and he didn't leave the squad. 17-year-old stayed in the squad for the back end of the season and played really well, and Palace have signed him. I don't think he'll see
the Derby closing down sale.
The fire sale. Yeah, so I don't think you'll see much time in the league. Obviously, there's some good wingers there at Palace that he'll be struggling to get ahead of, but definitely Palace see themselves going far in a cup run, or at least having a good cup run, and I think he'll have a role to play there. So definitely one to watch. A successful season for Palace would be an improvement on last season, both stylistically and where they finish in the league. Just keep building on what they built, what Vieira was able to build last year. And I think with a bit of cautious optimism from fans, that they could think that they want to finish top half. And I predicted Palace to finish 10th. So I think they're going to have another good season. And their kits, we spoke about them earlier. Macron is the kit supplier, and they've done well here. The home kit is the blue and red squiggly stripes, and then you've got the away kit with the white with the blue and red squiggly stripe in the middle, and then the blue and red squiggly sash kit. So some really good kits there. The sponsor works well, and I'll give them 9 squiggly lines out of 10.
Big year for Squiggle fans.
Mr. Squiggle's back 2022.
Very good. Thanks, Damo. All right, next up is going to be Everton with Colby. Go on, mate.
Ooh.
All right, boys. So as we know, Frank Lampard came in last season when Everton win that relegation dogfight, and famously and very bravely took the Toffees from 16th to 16th. This will be his first full season in charge of the club. He'll obviously be looking to avoid another relegation scare and improve on that. But some of the pre-season results haven't really given us a lot of faith that would necessarily happen, with Everton losing 2-0 to Arsenal, 4-0 to Minnesota, before consolidating some results with a 4-2 over Blackpool. And I think they got up over Dynamo Kiev today, with my boy Dwight McNeil on the score sheet.
Scored a banger.
He did. It was a pretty decent goal. Inns, they've been raiding Burnley. James Tarkowski and my boy Dwight McNeil, both coming over from Burnley in the fire sale there, and on loan from Sporting, Ruben Vinagre. He'll at left back, he'll provide some competition for Mikolenko, you'd think. Big out though, Richarlison, who you have to say almost single-handedly kept Everton up last season. Just put them on his back in that last run of games. So that's a huge out for them. So fans should be excited about staying up in the Prem after that big scare. And their midfield also returning to full strength after some injuries as well, to the likes of Andre Gomes and Abdul Decore. So and they've also got Babin back as well. So and Alan as well, who had some injury issues. So I think Alan. So I think hopefully there'll be a lot more options for them in midfield. So they'll be excited about that as well. But I think they might be nervous about raiding Burnley to stay in the Prem. I don't know whether that necessarily makes a whole lot of sense. But of course, one to watch is Dwight McNeil, wonderful left foot. Still just 22, yet he's got over 100 Premier League appearances. He's going to get a lot more opportunity. You look at his stats, and it doesn't have that impressive a goal record, but you've got to remember what kind of a Burnley team he was involved in. So I think he's going to get an opportunity to flourish under Frank, who, as we know, doesn't really care about defending that much, just sort of lets them do their thing. And he's a lot more of an old school left winger, out and out left winger than the likes of Damari Gray or Gordon as well. I mean, Everton now, they're just stacked for left wingers. They've got more left wingers than a Brunswick coffee shop.
Can confirm.
So, I mean, the other one to watch, I think, if I had to pick another one, it would be Fishing Dad Delhi. He's reinvented himself again over the off season.
I miss Basketball Dad Delhi and Baseball Dad Delhi.
They were the best ones. But I think this season it's all about Fishing Dad Delhi. Looks like he's just come back from the trawler, and he's going to be trawling around for a couple of goals this season. He's got the number 20, which he's pleased about. Upgrading his squad number, and I think he'll be full of confidence this season as well. Successful season for Everton is just avoiding another relegation scare and just consolidating back closer towards the middle of the table. I do think the Everton Cup. I do think they'll stay up. They won't be challenging for the Everton Cup, but and they may have another relegation scare, but I think they'll finish in 14th and sort of improve on last season. So to the kits. With the so it's a Hummel kit. The home kit's a nice, clean, modern blue and white, and they've got this sort of geometric pattern that's in the shape of their tower, the Prince Rupert's Tower, which you also see on Everton's club badge in the background. And then the away kit, you've got that mainly pink one that we saw, and it's been described, the graphic pattern on the front has been described as interconnected lozenges.
Jesus Christ.
It looks
Make
like
of that
the
what you
underside
will.
of a turtle. It looks horrible.
So, I mean, that just makes me think that the lozenges just makes me think of like just a couple of blue strepsils on the front of their kit. So, but it does have a nice Kuru neck collar. We've got to highlight the collar and the classic Hummel chevrons on the shoulders is a nice touch as well. So
along with the stake.com, Colby.
We won't say much about stake.com, but what I will say is I'll give them 7 crypto casino / sports betting platforms out of 10.
Nice. Look, it hasn't come up so far, but I reckon that Everton away kit, the pink kit, and it's not because it's pink. I don't mind the occasional pink kit. Got a Palermo kit at home. But that Everton away kit is trash.
Yeah. I love it.
I hate it.
I love it. I think it's
Dave
great.
said he liked it. Yeah, I think it looks awful, but
yeah. Thank you, George. Thank you, George. You'll be invited back. All right. Next, thanks, Colby. Next up is going to be Damo with Fulham.
Yes, Fulham FC for my keeping on the American theme of my boys. That's how we'll pronounce it. Marco Silva, the manager. We've seen him before in the Premier League. He obviously had a great season last year with Fulham. They fizzled out at the back end of the season when they'd already won the league and the promotion was secured, and they lost a few games, and it looked a lot closer in the end than I think it actually was. We've got on here, I've got a fun fact about the owner, Shahid Khan. So his son, Tony Khan, is a minority owner of Fulham as well, but he owns the Jacksonville Jaguars in the NFL, and is for the wrestling fan crossovers, he owns the major rival to WWE called All Elite Wrestling. So there's a fact of the day for you. But
more than a sport as well. Here, just getting into wrestling, MMA, everything here and more than a game.
Look, Fulham fans will be so excited about being back in the Premier League, and we were talking about it before, hopefully staying up this year. They want to take that record-breaking season they had last year in the Championship and keep that momentum going into the Premier League. They've got a relatively unchanged squad, which we've seen before from Fulham, but they've got a couple of tidy additions that I think will really strengthen the team in spots that weren't their best in the championship last year. It's hard to say they had weak spots when they just walked over the league like they did, but they brought in Joao Palhinha from Sporting, and Jesse will probably roast me for not getting that name right. But
Got a bit of
bad,
mayo
mate.
on it, though.
bit of mayo.
Bad.
But yeah, they paid 20 mil for him. Jesse might have some more insight into the kind of player he is and sort of what he can do for Fulham. But Fulham also signed Andreas Pereira from Man United for just under 10 million. And then they've signed Manor Solomon from Shakhtar on loan, as Shakhtar are loaning out a lot of their players at the moment just to let them play football. I think obviously Fulham fans would be nervous about their reputation of being a yo-yo club. They've done this before. They've come up. They've gone back down. Can they buckle that trend? Can they finally stay up? Have they bought enough players to stay in the Premier League? Can they rely on that championship team? One of the big things for teams that have great championship seasons and score a lot of goals in the championship is that's what they rely on. They scored over 100 goals last year in the championship. They're not going to come anywhere near that, replicating that this season in the Premier League. So can their defense hold up and can they compete in tight games is probably the question and what they'd be nervous about, because that's what's going to keep them in the league. They did have one of the best defenses in the championship last year as well. I think only 2 teams conceded less goals than in the championship. But I mean, when we're talking about goal scoring, you're talking about one to watch, you got to talk about Mitrovic and the season he had last year. He scored 43 goals in 43 league games. It's a record number of goals in an English second tier and the most goals in any top 4 English league in over half a century. So an unbelievable
Serbian
season.
Lukaku.
The Serbian Lukaku is back in the Premier League. And I've got a note here that, can he finally replicate that scoring success in the Premier League? We've seen him. I think he's had 3 seasons in the Premier League now, or maybe a little bit more, but 24 goals in 104 appearances in total. His best tally for a single season was 11 goals but last time he only had 3. Fulham were in the league. So, 3 is a long way from 43. So I think a lot of Fulham's hopes will pin on whether or not he can score goals. And the other one to watch, which I mentioned earlier, was Tyrese Francois. He's 21. He's been at Fulham for about 8 years now. He's been in the first team setup for the last 3 years. He's only played 3 games in that time. So unlikely to see him play a lot. But he was disappointed to miss out on a spot in the Ollie Roos, I'm sure, for the Olympics last year. But at the most recent 2022 under-23 Asian Cup, he captained the team all the way to that pretty good campaign that they lost in the semi-final and then unfortunately lost the 3rd place playoff as well. But he would be hoping to play some more football this year, and we might actually see him go out on loan maybe halfway through the year. I think I was reading about that earlier. But he's still one of my boys. I'll have to share him with Shannon after Shannon got in before me, unfortunately.
You can have him on weekends.
Yeah, I'll have him on weekends. A successful season for Fulham. I mean, there's only one measure of Fulham's success this year, and that's staying in the league. If they stay in the league, it's successful. Anything else is unsuccessful. It's pretty simple. But I predicted them to go down, unfortunately. I think they'll have an unsuccessful season. They'll finish 18th, and they'll just pip Southampton in the last couple of rounds just to see how Jesse feels. So the kit rating for Fulham, just before you asked that question, Tommy. So Fulham hadn't released a kit until overnight. So last night they released their home kit, or it was leaked, or it got out. It's a pretty basic, just white Adidas kit with red trim around a crew neck collar and red trim around the sleeves. It just looks like yeah, exactly.
You know
They made us wait for it. That's for sure. You stole my joke.
It looks like they forgot to add the colours for a Wolverhampton kit. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's
monochrome.
just a basic Adidas template that they've chucked a sponsor on.
Big W sponsor.
The big W. They really should have gone for their last year's kit was like a throwback to some of their kits from previous years. They had a white kit with red pinstripes and it looked really good. And I assumed they were going to go and do something similar to that, but they've gone with, I'm going to give it 2 out of 10 because they made me wait.
Wait times 88. Damo, I just want to throw out there that Mitrovic is, so I think he's 6.5 million on FPL. I'm predicting that he's going to score less than his FPL price this season in the Premier League. So, yeah, keep an eye out for that. And I guess our Premier League review.
Who's going to score more, Mitrovic or Solanke? Both had good seasons in the championship last year, but both can't score goals in the Prem.
Surely, Mitro. Surely,
that is a great question. If he doesn't score 10 goals, they're getting relegated for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think even if he scores 10 goals, they're getting relegated. Let's be honest.
I reckon that is a great shout for something for us to review again in the postseason pod as well. Mitrovic versus Solanke comparison. Boys, next up, or actually before we move on, Tyrese Francois, I think he's been linked with Melbourne Victory as well on loan too. So I'm not sure if that was just a flash in the pan, one of those rumors that you see sort of one day and it's never seems to gather any momentum. But that was, I think it was this week, about a week ago that I first saw that. I haven't seen a lot about it since, but I guess that may not be a terrible move for him and pretty good for Melbourne Victory, but obviously more about that in the coming weeks, I guess, when we do our Premier League season preview as well. A-League season preview. Next up is going to be Leeds United, though, and I'm making my debut in terms of previewing a team. So, obviously, Jesse Marsh, he's got his American army. They're growing with Brendan Aronson, Tyler Adams joining him there after they finished 17th last season and only just avoided relegation. So, obviously, this is a big season in the post Marcelo Bielsa era. They've lost Rafinha, Calvin Phillips, Marcelo Bielsa in the last few months, which is a pretty massive shift for the club, whichever way you want to look at it.
Bielsa's not a big loss. Waste man.
Wow. But look, yeah, I'm not taking the bait. But look, it's going to be really interesting, I guess, to see how Jesse Marsh goes with a full preseason under his belt. The players who have remained and the players that he's brought in obviously now have an opportunity to really bet into his system, which is, yes, Bielsa and Marsh are both all about pressing and sort of, I guess, being aggressive from the front, but in very, very different ways. Whereas Bielsa was all about sort of 1v1 battles, Jesse Marsh is all about sort of keeping narrow and compact and sort of pressing from the front, but in a very different way.
And win.
Yeah, it's very. They've sold their two best players. Like, I don't think that can be undersold. Like, that's massive. Like, very strange.
That is huge. And look, I don't necessarily disagree that it was probably about the right time to cash in on Rafinha. I mean, I think they got somewhere in the region of about 50 million for him, which. I mean, whether or not they actually get the money from Barcelona remains to be seen. But they also, I think, got about £45 million for Calvin Phillips from City as well, which, again, that's probably not a terrible deal for Leeds. But look, it's going to be very difficult to replace both those players, especially Phillips, who he was a Leeds boy, and that's really difficult to replace.
Well, Tommy, look, they got 90 odd million for those departures of Rafinha and Phillips, and they've already spent more than 90 odd million on the players they've brought in. Is it a good use of the 90 million they got?
Well, and that's a good question, because the players that they brought in, look, they're not known players. Some of them have come in. They've brought in two players in Brendan Aronson and Rasmus Christensen from RB Salzburg in Austria, both very well known to Jesse Marsh, but obviously it's quite a leap up from the Austrian league to the Premier League. So I think
all but one of these signings have actually played under Jesse Marsh at one point in their career.
That's a good shout.
So
and
he was the manager at Salzburg. He was a manager at Leipzig, and I think Roca was on loan to one of those teams at the time too. So I think the Feyenoord player is the only one Jesse Marsh has never managed before, which is interesting. He's gone for known quantities, and it almost seems like it's a cultural fit as well as a sort of stylistic fit that he's going for too.
No, totally agree, and I think that's smart from Marsh, knowing that he does have. There's not a lot of wiggle room. There's no opportunity to have players that miss when they're spending that Rafinha and Phillips money. So these are really important transfers. Rocker, and also I haven't mentioned him just yet, but Luis Sinisterra from Feyenoord, he did really well in the Eredivisie last season. Another player who we've seen sort of Brighton and Southampton, though, rating the Eredivisie in the past, and players haven't necessarily been able to step up to the next level in the Premier League. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Sinisterra goes for Leeds, and whether or not he can replace that same output from, and I guess that same creativity and threat as well that Rafinha had on the right-hand side as well. So I think whilst Rocker and Tyler Adams are really important to sort of the functionality of the team, Sinisterra is probably going to be the one that's going to be getting into the highlight reels, and is going to be the one that's sort of either getting on the score sheet and creating things. And I think in the last 10 years in the Premier League, we've seen that it's not difficult to set up a team that's hard to break down and be defensively solid. But what is difficult is to find those creative players who are able to create and score goals in the way that Rafinha did for, I guess, a team that was kind of struggling. So Sinisterra, I think, is really, really important, going to be really crucial to how Leeds go this season. Like I said, they finished 17th last season, only just avoiding relegation. And so I think fans will be excited about a full preseason with Jesse Marsh, and I guess his opportunity to implement all of his ideas onto the squad. But I think fans will be very nervous about obviously replacing Rafinha, Calvin Phillips, and also whether Bamford can stay fit for a whole season as well. We've seen in the last sort of 18 months, whenever Bamford isn't fit, just the whole lead squad doesn't really work, or the first 11 doesn't work quite so well. So he's obviously crucial to their ability to score goals. What's a successful season is avoiding a relegation dogfight. Hopefully, they'll be hoping that they can get into sort of mid-table, and that way they won't be getting stuck into that relegation dogfight. In terms of their transfer business, I think they've actually spent one of the most. They spent the most out of all of the Premier League teams, which is kind of wild considering they've bought a whole bunch of no names out of the Austrian Bundesliga. But yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. But in terms of their kit now, they've only released their home kit, which, as you'd expect, is white with a little bit of yellow and blue trim. Reminds me a little bit of the Fulham kit because it's exactly the same, just with slightly different trim. It's not bad. I don't mind it in the same way that I don't mind the Fulham kit either. But look, I reckon the other four panelists that are on the pod today probably all think it's just as boring and dull and inspirationless as the Fulham kit. Correct me if I'm wrong, boys. I'm predicting
as their transfer activity.
Yeah. Do you reckon that just boring white kid has come out of the Austrian Bundesliga too?
Boring and white.
Yeah. Nice.
I'm predicting that Leeds are going to finish 17th this season, though, and just dodge relegation again. Yeah. Next up is going to be Leicester City, and Colby is previewing them. Go on, Colby.
Pleased to be previewing Leicester City this season because I think they were a little bit anonymous in parts of last season. They had a big dip from sort of challenging into that top four and trying to challenge for like European spots as they had been for the couple of seasons before. But this was due to a lot of long-term injuries that ripped through their squad, primarily their defenders and a couple of other key players. But they all look to have recovered now, and Brendan Rodgers' Leicester will be looking to bounce back this season. They're another team who have had some questionable results over the preseason, going down to Notts County, drawing with a team from the Belgian Pro League before sort of bouncing back against the likes of Hull and Derby and Preston. They've got Sevilla on Monday, but it's sort of like shaky results, and then they're sort of just bullying like not great opposition in the preseason. So I don't really understand what the rationale there is. And then you look at their ins and outs, and it's sort of like not too much happening. There's just a lot of rumours swirling on both sides at the moment. I think Leicester are leaving it quite late to do the transfer business. I mean, as we love to say on this podcast, they've got a lot of ins, a lot of returns from injury and things like that are like new signings. Fofana, Soyuncu, James Justin, Pereira, Barnes, all like new signings coming into the squad. So a few of those, though, real long-term injuries. So it'll be interesting to see if they can get back to their form, because like all of those names are pretty key names on Leicester's team sheet. A lot of rumours, though, around the potential outs. I'll put them in the outs column, but they're still in the squad at this stage. Kasper Schmeichel, strongly rumoured to be heading out to Nice. Wesley Fofana, got
Nice.
Chelsea sniffing around after.
So he's off to Barca then.
Yeah, I mean, I think like if Chelsea is sniffing around, Barca are going to swoop in. And then obviously Tielemans, as last season, basically put in his notice and said he'll be leaving the end of his contract. But we've got to remember his contract runs to the end of this season. So if no one comes in for him, then he basically will be a Leicester player still, and he's been playing for them in the preseason. Obviously,
Leicester are asking for nearly 65 million from Arsenal with a player that's
so
only got 12 months left.
Yeah, and so they should, especially with the likes of Arsenal, who are the most strongly rumoured. And obviously, I mentioned in my preview of Arsenal that they really need someone in the midfield, and I think Youri Tielemans would be an excellent fit for the Arsenal midfield, and just what they need. And so, I mean, if I was Leicester, of course I would be asking for top dollar if you're going to give him to, Arsenal should be one of their rivals for European places. So, I think they're right to insist on that amount of money for him, because they know Arsenal need him.
Yeah, I think another good point is Arsenal are also desperate for homegrown player quota. And Youri Tielemans actually qualifies as one because he moved to the Premier League at such a young age and has played X amount of games before a certain age, which qualifies him as a homegrown player, I'm pretty sure. So that puts an extra price on top of his head, essentially the English player tax.
What's the logic behind the Schmeichel move? Does anyone...
He wants a nicer place to live.
Yeah, I don't know, George. I mean, he's like in his mid-30s. I mean, he probably maybe just wants a move, maybe wants a change. I don't know. He's won the league with Leicester, obviously, in that season, and maybe wants to move on. But yeah, no, I don't really know what the logic is, but it sounds like it's pretty strongly rumoured, and then they'll be left with a Danny Ward if they can't find a replacement in time. So yeah, watch this space. As it is, he's still a Leicester player, and he'll be in the squad this season. But it looks like there's probably still a bit of business to be done on both sides. Leicester fans will be excited about those key players returning to their ranks, but they will be nervous about goals, I think, this season. And it's another season and another year older. Like we've been saying this for the past couple of years. Can Jamie Vardy continue to provide Leicester with goals, or will they have to start to meaningfully transition to the likes of Kelechi Iheanacho or Patson Daka? Those guys are both shown some promise in flourishes, but one of them will need to step up and really be the main sort of outlet for Leicester. So I think I think fans will be a little bit nervous about that. One to watch, I'd say, Tommy, you haven't mentioned him as your boy, but I think of Harvey Barnes as your boy. I think he's one to watch coming back from injury. Looked pretty good when he came back at the back end of last season. I think if he can stay fit and kick on, he'll really be key to Leicester's success.
Have a barnstorming season.
He will. A successful season for Leicester is to really get back to where they were before their trajectory before last season, sort of just pushing for the European spots and really challenging, really just smashing that Everton Cup and having it be renamed the Leicester Cup. I think they'll finish in 7th, so I think they will bounce back and improve on last season. And so that just leaves us with the kits. We've got an Adidas number here, but this is not to be confused with Adidas numbers of Arsenal. This isn't the special Adidas numbers. This is just your stock standard templates of Adidas. Like it's a basic blue with a basic collar. No graphics, nothing fancy. Some weird trading platform sponsor, and then you've got a sort of weird grey away kit. And there's also a third kit that I've seen around there that I don't know how solidly confirmed this is, but it's like a white kit with gold trim on the sleeves. And it looks a bit like an off-brand Newcastle Jets gold kit, but like not as good, which is really saying something. So I'm giving it 6 budget Adidas templates out of 10.
Colby, I think Jamie Vardy wasn't very impressed with the home kit either, because in all of the kit photos that I saw, he just looks like he's got the shits in every one of them. Like he's just fed up, right? So
what is this shit?
Yeah,
maybe because he's just been whacked with a bill from that lost court case from his wife. So
got to bail Colleen out. Bail Rebecca out.
It's Rebecca Vardy.
The away kit almost looks like I'm not sure. It was a Manchester United away kit from maybe 2 years ago, I think it was. It looks very similar. It just looks like a Crazy Clark's tablecloth.
Gross. All right. Next up is straight from Paris. Is Jesse reviewing Liverpool's chances for this season? Thanks, Jesse.
Boys, Jesse here live from a Paris hotel with your Liverpool preview. So plenty happening over Liverpool. Obviously, the biggest news in the off-season has been Sadio Mane transferring to Bayern Munich. A big loss. There's no sugarcoating it. But very excited with Darwin Núñez coming in. Hopefully, he can shake the title as the Uruguayan Lukaku and become something else as the season goes on. Very excited with him and the addition of a few other players. Fabio Carvalho from Fulham previously played with Harvey Elliott back then and has a lot of potential. Potentially is going to fit into a change of formation, which I guess is the other big point. That is something to look forward to this season with Liverpool, with Mane leaving 4-3-3, maybe replaced with a 4-2-3-1, which Klopp has tinkered with in the past. And this enables players like Fabio Carvalho, Firmino, and Elliott basically to potentially drift across from the right and the left and potentially into that central role behind a striker being Núñez. So that's an exciting thing to look forward to. For me as a Liverpool fan, I want to see a bit of a change. I think that other teams have really figured out the 4-3-3, and Ancelotti said it himself in the Champions League final that the 4-3-3 has become quite predictable, and we've seen some teams effectively sort of nullify that as time has gone on. So we do need a refresh. I think we've got the right players for it. Can we actually push City all the way to the title? I mean, I'm going to say yes, but, I'm the eternal optimist when it comes to Liverpool. I think that they can go and win it, but I'm not sure we'll do as well in the cup competitions this year because it did prove to be too many comps to juggle, even though we nearly managed to nab a couple more trophies than we did. My prediction first for Liverpool, but I do think that there is potential as the season goes on for some teams like Chelsea and, of course, Manchester City to really put the heat on and potentially pull away. So I'm being optimistic here, but that's my preview of Liverpool for the season.
Thanks, Jesse. One thing he did leave out was the kit review. Now, this is obviously very important on more than a game. But look, I can understand why Jesse didn't talk a lot about the kit, the Liverpool kit this season, because you'd be shocked. It's a red Nike kit with some white sponsors logos and the white Liverpool crest, and that's about it.
Bring back
New
New
Balance.
Come up with it.
I'll tell you what I don't like about this kit and a couple of the other ones that Nike have made for Premier League teams is they've got that separate panel that runs across the shoulders, and like the sleeves and the shoulders have got a separate panel, and it just looks really disjointed to the rest of the kit. Mm-hmm. This could have been made so much better if it didn't have those panels. If it just looked like a normal t-shirt, I would really like this just basic red kit.
I feel like
Liverpool. So I was reading about how Liverpool swapped from New Balance to Nike, and the
The
deal
Athletic.
was that yeah,
Deep dive.
deep dive. This was during work hours, so
Nice. You bill for it.
yeah, feel for it. Someone's paying for it. But so they did a deal where they got less money up front, but they get a bigger cut of shirt sales with this deal. So as a percentage of shirt sales, so they'll be hoping that this kit takes off because they'll get more cash.
I can't see this selling a lot, but I mean it's a Liverpool kit, and so it'll probably.
Yeah,
sell
have you met
millions of
Liverpool
kits, so-
fans? Like,
Yeah.
it'll sell. Like, and they've got Mo Salah. He's re-signed, so finally got his contract done. So I mean, these things will. I mean, you could make anything, and they'll fly off the shelves.
Colby,
Well,
what's
did
your
you see
thoughts
the
on the
away
away
kit?
kit? Yeah, it looks a
Yeah.
bit like you're having a
House of
bit of a
Mirrors.
trip. Yeah. It's the you look at it.
Oh,
It's one of
yeah,
those,
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like those cars where you look at them from one direction and they're purple, and you look at them from the other direction and they're blue.
It gives me actually, to be honest, it gives me big like Spurs 2019 energy, like that kind.
Well, funny
of
you say that
experimental
because
away kit.
Spurs' third kit is exactly this, but blue.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow, indeed. All right, thanks Jesse for getting that to us all the way from Paris. Next up, thanks Mikey. It's great to have you on the pod for the preview app. And
We've
here
kept
he
him
is.
waiting. Jeez.
Yeah, I know,
that's a bit of an old hour and a half.
Respect to Mikey for being here right from the start. Like we're almost 2 hours in, and here he is now with his moment. But he's been here from the beginning.
Here he is. The
Yeah,
Mikey
yeah.
tap on.
Patiently waiting.
So, Mikey, take it away with Manchester City.
I could take it away with Melbourne City if you'd like. But Man City, obviously, the big name you'd be looking at is Haaland. But we touched on it a little bit earlier. I think the outs are probably just as important as the ins for Man City. The fact that I'm not sure if it's like the economy of transfers nowadays or how it's all going, but the fact that Raheem Sterling, Gabriel Jesus, and Zinchenko are going to league rivals, I think says everything about the ambition of Manchester City going into this season, because they could very easily have kept what they had. If it's not broken, don't fix it. They could still win the league with that squad, but they've gone instead for Erling Haaland, a natural goal scorer, and I think that's probably got a lot to do with Pep Guardiola and Man City's aspirations for a Champions League. You want that little bit of X factor there. Also in Calvin Phillips off Leeds, which is a good get for Man City. A bit of box to box stuff going on there.
He can do
Alvarez
those
from
professional fouls all day. He likes with Pep
Yes,
Guardiola
yeah.
as his manager. That's all he's good at.
Alvarez from River Plate. And another out
aye.
I thought I'd mention for everybody is I think the first and the last transfer between these two clubs is Daniel Arzani is leaving Manchester City to join MacArthur FC.
I'm sure that makes like the BBC's Manchester City season preview outs as well.
Big outs.
Big outs. Daniel Arzani.
I think Man City fans should be very excited about Haaland, but they should also be very nervous about Haaland. It's a big risk the club's taking, I guess. I mean, he's not really been tested at the Premier League level. I think he'll thrive. But I think another thing for City to be very nervous about is Sterling and Jesus. If they're going to come back to haunt them at the Etihad, I'm not too sure. But I think that's a big risk the club have taken to try to get the most money I think they can out of those players. And it may come back to bite them. I'm predicting them to go champions again. I'm not really sure what other club will be able to stop them. They're pretty much all-encompassing in the league. And I think the addition of Haaland and Alvarez will be probably a little too much for anyone to catch up to. Kit chat. Well, we've got a centralized badge. I'm not sure what you boys think about this, but I'm not a huge fan, as well as their Queenslander maroon kind of detailing there. I'm not quite sure what I'm sure there's a historical reason for the maroon. I'm not too sure. But not really a big winner for me. The away kit, is fantastic, and I reckon, like I said earlier in the pod, probably one of their best kits ever.
Oof.
Anyone have anything to say about that? I'm not sure.
I'm a big fan of the kit manufacturer logo and the crest being in the middle. I really like that look. They tried to do it last year on that third kit that didn't actually have the
Without the
logo. It
badge.
just said
Yeah.
Manchester City, and it just didn't quite work. But I think centralizing them on the home kit, I think it looks really good.
On that, Damo, I'm so glad we don't have to see that kit. I mean, that
That design was shocking, and so many clubs had it.
Yeah.
It just
was
looked like
everywhere.
it looked like one of those kits that you get at a $2 shop that someone's just put together.
It's like you don't have the license to use the club.
Yeah,
badge.
exactly.
It's like
It's
the
ridiculous.
Pro Evo. The Pro Evo.
Yeah.
version.
Yeah, the Pro Evo kit. Manchester Blue.
Mikey, I think it's pretty much unanimous that City are going to win the league, or if not win it, go very, very close. We're at this point, I guess, in sort of for lack of a better term, the Manchester City cycle, that it's not about the league so much for them. They're desperate to win the Champions League.
Yeah.
Do you think they have do you think Haaland is the missing piece in the jigsaw puzzle to take them to Champions League glory, or you still think they're going to drop out at the quarters or semis or even the final again?
Yeah, they probably will. They probably will drop out again. I don't think it's about their quality. They've had the quality in the past to be able to win the Champions League. They had the quality when they played Chelsea in the final, but they didn't do it. And that might be, there's a lot written about whether Pep overthinks big games, and I think he probably does, but, I'm not Pep Guardiola. I'm not going to tell him how to do his job. But, I mean, they easily could win the Champions League, but I also would not at all be surprised if they bow out to Bayern Munich in the quarterfinals.
Or some French team in like the round of 32
Nice with
or whatever.
Schmeichel.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Schmeichel's gonna be the hero.
I mean, I know it's early days, but it's sort of hard. It's hard not to pick them to win everything. Like it's almost as if like something would have to go very wrong, like a Pep brain fade in the Champions League, or like half their squad being injured, or something happening for them not to win it. So
I think it would have to take Pep going somewhere else for anything to change. Like they're at that point now where it's just complete dominance.
It's just almost boring City being so good. I think Jesse is the one that normally makes that point about how City's dominance is not particularly entertaining anymore, as good as they are. All right, but let's keep moving though, because still got quite a few teams to cover. Mikey, you're up again after sitting out for 12 teams. Now you got back to back, and you're previewing Manchester United. Go on, mate.
Yeah, Manchester United got another reset this year. I don't know how many that's been since Fergie, but they're ready to go again, and they're ready to be back. Erik ten Hag, he's already got a trophy under the belt with the Bangkok Centenary Cup, which I'm not sure if you guys saw that. That was the biggest trophy I think I've ever seen. I'm not sure. I saw some people say
better
it's
than any
computer,
trophy Spurs have
the
ever won.
stadium. Well, that's true enough. That's true enough. Apparently, they left that behind when they kicked on to Melbourne. But so I mean, that probably for Man United fans isn't the trophy they're looking for under Erik ten Hag. They're looking for a bit more success from him. And I think he may be a good fit for them. I don't know if you guys have seen many of their pre-season games, but 4-0 against Liverpool. Again, one of those games where you can sub off a whole team. I'm not sure what you can say. 4-1 against the Victory. And I just want to look at the ins here. Christian Eriksen, I think, is a huge, huge pickup for Man United. We saw how he was in the Premier League last season. They've picked up 2 Dutch players, which Ten Hag is familiar with. I'm gonna screw up these names here. Lisandro Martinez and Tyrell Malacia. I've probably butchered those both, but again, players he's familiar with.
Famous Dutch player, Martinez. Yep.
Yeah.
From the Eredivisie, though, Tommy, come on.
The big outs, we've seen Mata retired, Matic has moved on, Cavani's moved out, a lot of dead weight. Paul Pogba has finally left the club, but one out is not there.
Dog back.
Pogba
Cristiano
2.0.
Ronaldo has gone
See ya.
nowhere yet, and I'm not sure if he will go anywhere because it doesn't seem like anyone wants Cristiano Ronaldo. As crazy as that sentence is, no club
Well,
wants him.
I don't know if you guys saw this or maybe one of you did share it. I saw a tweet that said all these contract negotiations that Manchester United have been doing with Ronaldo over the last couple of days, the ones where Fergie was at the training ground as well, that they might have settled on Ronaldo has agreed to sign an extra year on his contract, but will be loaned out this year to a club playing in the Champions League and then come back to play one more year when Man United are in the Champions League. He's just stat sheet stuffing. He doesn't want to leave the Champions League. It's kind of embarrassing.
I think it's more embarrassing that he can't find a suitor. Like it's well, for one of the best players in the world. I mean, Bayern Munich was an option for a while. Atletico Madrid, their fans protested the mere mention of them being together, and I'm not sure what's going to happen when they play each other in a friendly tomorrow. I'm not sure if he's back with either of those clubs. But yeah, a bit of a weird one there. But it looks
I think
like
the big problem as well is his wages. No one wants to pay his wages.
No.
But that's the thing is if he goes out on loan somewhere, Manchester United can front 80% of his wages and the loanee can only pay him whatever they want. So maybe that is a solution. Who knows? But it just feels very embarrassing for a player that had this ceremonious return to Manchester United, and he spoke this big game about how he wanted to lift the club back to where it was, and just seemingly like he's going to go to a Farmers League and walk in a team that's going to win the league anyway.
I mean, it really just feels like we are, like, the way we're talking about this now and the way we're thinking about this, we're just firmly in the post Messi and Ronaldo era. Like,
sad.
It's sad, but like, I mean, it's like 60-year-old Tom Cruise cosplaying as like the main action hero in movies. Still, it's like, well, you know, I see you there, but you know, do I believe it? Not really.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
Ronaldo the Maverick.
You got players like Gareth Bale calling time and going to the MLS, but you got Ronaldo still kicking on, wanting to play Champions League football every year.
Yep.
I think the Man United fans should actually be very excited. I feel he's got rid of a lot of the deadwood, a lot of those big wages on the squad, pending Ronaldo. Sancho, he took a while to hit the ground running last season, but in pre-season, he seems to have a bit of a new spark. He's been running out the midfield quite well. So I think he's one to watch. I think they should be excited about his pressing style, and that'll be good to watch, I think, for everyone. They should be nervous about the patience of their fans and their board if things don't go well immediately, because I think he will be a success, but it's a matter of if he's got that backing and that time to implement his style, I think. Kit Chat, I think their home kit is very good. I mean, they've got the badge in the shield, collared red shirt. Their away kit launched at Federation Square. I'm not sure if anyone saw that. I don't know why. I went along to that one, and it was a bizarre event.
Were you on the tram?
Filled with people. Yeah, well, I got the tram down. I didn't get the same tram, though. I was a bit disappointed. Yeah, the away kit, I'm not a huge fan. Very plain white kit with some weird detailing on the collar and the cuffs and red Adidas stripes there. I'm not sure about anyone
Looks like they're
else's
meant to be
opinion.
Mitre diamonds.
I'm not sure what they're meant to be at all. It doesn't look very good, though, I don't think.
I feel like
The
this
sponsor,
home kit,
though, the sponsor.
Yeah, I was going to say,
really
I feel like
takes
this
away.
home kit could have been one of like Manchester United's all-time iconic kits if it had a good shirt sponsor. The team viewer and the logo just
It ain't it.
It ain't it. And
Nah.
it ruins this home kit that otherwise is an incredible kit.
It doesn't match the sort of premium that people, I think, non-football fans would associate with brand Manchester United. It just but it reflects where football fans understand that club Manchester United currently are. It's on that level, but you know, in terms of where the brand is, it's not on the same level.
I feel like Manchester United season hinges totally around whether or not Ronaldo stays or if he goes. I think if he goes, I think they're making top 4. I think if he leaves, if he leaves, I think they're making top 4. If he stays, I think anything can happen. They could end up 6th, 7th, worse. It's going to be a train wreck, I think, if he hangs around.
But if he stays, what
I
do you
agree with
do?
that.
Because do you not play Cristiano Ronaldo? What do you do? Do you make him train with the reserves like Mourinho and Schweinsteiger? I'm not sure.
That's exactly
that's-
the thing. It's going to turn into an
that's-
absolute circus if he stays
Exactly.
because, like, they've shown that, like, in some of the preseason games, they look like a really, like, sort of well put together side when Ronaldo's not around. They're so much better without him, which is just
when the way
it's
Ten
just
Hag
ridiculous.
plays, the way Ten Hag plays is such a pressing forward pressure team. We saw Ronaldo last year. All he does is he stands around the center circle and yells and points at everyone else around him to press. So he doesn't track back. He doesn't do any sort of defensive work. You would not think that Ten Hag could afford to play Ronaldo in his team if he wants to play that style of football. So then it just becomes a PR nightmare. How do you leave Ronaldo on the bench? How do you not play Ronaldo at all? They have to get rid of him. And I completely agree with Tommy. If they do get rid of him, whether it's a loan, whether they get rid of him, they'll have a good season. But if they don't, it's going to be a train wreck. Ten Hag could lose his job. The PR is going to be a nightmare. The fans will be a nightmare. But it's going to be fun to watch regardless because it's Man United.
I'm just glad I'm not a Man United fan.
Exactly.
In this situation. Thanks, Mikey. Did you say when were you predicting that they're going to finish?
Oh, no, I didn't say that, but I'd say a good finish for Man United, if all goes well, would be pushing for the Champions League place again. I think anything lower than that is probably a failure in the eyes of Man United fans anyway. So I don't know if I would predict them to finish in the top 4. I'll put them in 5.
Fair enough. Alrighty. Next up is going to be me with reviewing Newcastle United. Big movers in the last 6 to 12 months, obviously, with the Saudis buying them out. Eddie Howe was appointed just before Christmas last year. They were rock bottom at Christmas, and they end up finishing 11th with some pretty incredible form in the second half of last season with 12 wins, 3 draws, 4 losses in their final 19 games. They've brought in Sven Botman, one of the most sought-after centre-backs in Europe in the off-season. They brought in Nick Pope, probably one of the most solid goalkeepers despite getting relegated last year. And they've also secured Matt Targett from Aston Villa as well, who, is a okay left back for Premier League level.
That's low-key good transfer business, Tommy.
I agree, but I think Newcastle fans, probably at this stage, I think we'd be a bit disappointed that they haven't been able to secure any others. They were sort of sniffing around Brozier from Chelsea, and he could still end up going there. Yeah, of course, Mbappe. They've let go of a little bit of Deadwood as well, and Isaac Hayden, Jeff Hendrick, Dwight Gale, who are probably all off to the Championship, honestly. But look, like I say, I think there's still plenty of money to be going to be spent at Newcastle yet in the next couple of weeks. I think the transfer window doesn't close until the 1st of September, so we've still got another 4 weeks, even though the season starts in a week, for Newcastle to sign new players. And they were sniffing around Lingard as well, and I mean, I think a lot of people were surprised that he went to Forest. It looked like either West Ham or Newcastle were the most likely destinations, but it's not where he's ended up as well. So I think still plenty to happen in terms of transfers for Newcastle, either in this window or in the January window as well, given just how much money they've got to spend. And look, whilst this squad, I think everyone would be expecting that this squad now should be finishing quite safely, sort of mid-table and away from the relegation zone. Everyone knows that is not the end goal for the Saudis. They want this team up and around Europa League, definitely Champions League, sort of within, I would say, 5 years. But I think they'd be disappointed if they're not in the Champions League within 5 years, based off of how much money they've got. But The Athletic put it best when they said they needed some stepping stone signings, and I think the likes of sort of Botman, Pope, and Target are all pretty decent stepping stone signings for them, and Botman in particular, he could be around there for the next 10 years. So
Ironic they're talking about stoning.
who?
Oh, fuck. Oh, Jesus
Oh.
Christ.
Wow. Newcastle fans, I think they can be excited about consolidating away from the relegation zone, steady improvement of the squad, and a more attacking playing style as well, which we saw under Eddie Howe in the second half of last season. And probably most of all, I think they can be excited about the next January transfer window arriving and just more money being spent, better players coming in. They'll be nervous about whether the likes of Chris Wood is going to be good enough to take them into European places and up into the second half, into the top half of the table. Because whilst, the likes of Dan Bird and Chris Wood were solid and sort of helped them out in the second half of last season and get away from the relegation zone, not sure if they're going to lead them into European football. One to watch. I've got a question mark over whether or not Joelinton will be able to continue his transformation into prime Patrick Vieira. That's going to be exciting to watch because he was just a revelation for them in the second half of last season, just turned into an absolute tackling monster, just racking up tackling stats for fun. But look, I'm predicting that they're going to be finishing mid-table. I've got them finishing in 10th, and I think it's going to be maybe not quite a fun season for Newcastle fans, but I think it's going to be a lot more fun than it's been in the last couple of years. That's for damn sure.
Fun like their shirt sponsor?
Yeah, Fun
88.
Yeah, so look, in terms of their kit, I think the home kit is it's easy, right? It's black and white stripes. It's by Castore. It's got the Fun 88 sponsor, who I think are either gambling or crypto or both. So look, the home kit, it's not actually terrible. I don't mind it as far as sort of a stripy boy with a gambling / crypto logo goes. But look, it's the away kit that I think everyone's talking about. That's pretty much the Saudi away kit from, if not last season, one cycle before that. And I don't think anyone is particularly surprised given the links with the Saudi regime. I'm giving them 7 murdered journalists out of 10 for their kit rating this season.
Wow.
So looking
I
forward,
don't know. I think it's a lovely white kit with a lovely shade of sports wash green.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Next up, look, it's horrible. I really shouldn't laugh about that. But look, next up is Nottingham Forest, and I'm going to be previewing them as well. Exciting to talk about Nottingham Forest because they obviously haven't been in the Premier League for quite a while now. It's been 23 years since they got relegated. Haven't been in the Premier League in the 21st century after getting relegated in, I think it was the 99 season. Steve Cooper is their manager, who just pretty much unanimous is the ugliest manager in the league. Looks like a cross between Steve Buscemi and like the orc commander out of Lord of the Rings. Just a weird looking unit.
You want to know a
Steve,
fun...
if you're listening.
Sorry, Steve.
Shout out, Steve.
Fun fact about that relegation season in 1999.
Yeah.
Roy Keane was in that team, and he's the last player in the Premier League to be in the team of the season in a relegated side. So there you go.
Was that the year that he got sold?
Yep.
Wow,
That's wild. Man, I got a question. I'm gonna go check the tapes after that. Check the wiki about that because I don't know if I believe that. But anyway, the Forest owner is a Greek bloke by the name of Evangelos Marinakos. He's excuse the pronunciation. Wow. I think he's a shipping magnate. Made all his money in moving stuff around the world. Got some pretty dodgy political affiliations with what do they call? What are they? Golden Forest? Yeah, sure. Can't remember the Greek political party, the infamous sort of Greek political party that he's got some dodgy affiliations with. They did finish fourth last year. Yeah. They did finish 4th last year in the championship and ended up winning the playoff final in the penalty shootout, which was great to watch. A couple of bits of stats and trivia about Forest. And look, you're going to hear this one pretty much constantly, at least for the first month, whenever you hear Forest. But I'm getting in early, and that's that they're, I'm certain, the only club that has only ever won their top division once, but has won the European Cup twice. They won the English First Division in 78 and then won the European Cup back-to-back in 79 and 80. They lost the Toyota Cup to Nacional from Uruguay. They play out of the City Ground in Nottingham, which has got about a 30,000 capacity. And to be honest, like it's not a bad stadium. It's pretty comparable to a lot of, I think, sort of mid-tier Championship and Premier League grounds around England. So far, they've spent about 80 million on a range of different players. They brought in Dean Henderson from Manchester United, who's a great get, I think, on loan.
Huge.
Jesse Lingard's come in on free as well. Jesse Lingard.
No, Dean Henderson. Still missing.
A question on Lingard. I saw a picture of him and it had J Lings on the back. Is that actually going to be his name set for the league?
So I did some research into this, Mikey, because I
Good.
also was very upset when I saw that. So apparently within the Premier League rules, British players can't have nicknames on the back of their tops unless there is very significant circumstances like Delhi, who doesn't want to use Ali on his top because he's estranged with his dad, so he's allowed to use Delhi. And there's all this process in it being approved. But anyone who's not British can just really put whatever they want on their top. So for him to get J-Lings on his top is pretty impossible because it's not going to get through the approval process.
It's bullshit. Should be able to have whatever he wants.
It's good for his brand. He's a full-time social media influencer now.
He
TikTok and everything.
It's been pretty much like constantly. There's been a stream of memes about like Nottingham Forest are going to be last at Christmas, haven't scored a goal in the previous 10 matches, but like Jesse Lingard's going to score their first goal and he's just going to be doing TikTok dances sort of on the sideline for the next 10 minutes when he scores.
He just goes through his routine of TikTok dances, like 10 dances in one go.
The world has changed a bit since they were last in the Premier League, hasn't it?
Oh dear. But look, alongside Lingard, they've brought in Musa Niakate from Mainz, a centre back who I signed on Football Manager a couple of iterations ago. He's a great get. They've also brought in Omar Richards from Bayern. Nico Williams has joined from Liverpool. A couple of signings from the Championship in Lewis O'Brien and Harry Toffolo, who pretty much gutted the Huddersfield midfield there as well. And they've also they've also brought in Taiwo Awoniyi, striker who they broke their transfer record for from Union Berlin. So it looks like he's going to replace Lewis Grabham up front for the Tricky Trees.
Tommy, you'd expect to see Nico Williams in a lot of FPL teams this season, wouldn't you?
Yep, including mine. So he's 6 million. You just know he's going to bang in goals once every 10 games for Forest. So good stuff there. They also let go of, apart from Lewis Grabham, who's been at the club for a while and has got a bit of a reputation, I guess, for being a bit of a championship goal specialist as well.
Bit of a grubbin as well.
They also let go of Bryce Samba, who appears to have left after his penalty heroics in the playoffs too. So, look, Forest fans, I think, will be excited just being back in the league, but I think they'll be very nervous about whether or not they can stay there and whether or not their squad can gel quickly with all of those new additions. Fans, and I think everyone would just be wondering whether or not they've done a Fulham from a couple of years ago when they spent, 120 million or something ridiculous on new players. It'd be one to watch is my boy, 21-year-old Brennan Johnson. Scored 16 goals in the Championship last year. I think he's going to have a great season, even if Forest don't. What's a successful season is just staying in the league and then just go on from there next season. I'm predicting that they're actually going to do all right. I think they've recruited pretty smartly outside of Jesse Lingard as well. And I'm predicting that they're going to finish 14th. I think they could be the surprise packet of this year.
With a team like Forest, Tommy, the first sort of 5 or 6 games is crucial, right? Especially their 5 or 6 first home games. If they can use that momentum and that hype of just being in the league, that first 5 or 6 home games they've got this season could secure them safety, pretty much. And that you have to run off that momentum and that hype for as long as you possibly can when you're a promoted team.
I say it every season preview about the importance for promoted teams about just, like you say, generating or using all of that momentum from the championship and sort of delaying as long as possible those bloody noses that they're going to get from when they finally get a beat down from one of the big boys in the Premier League. And some years it takes, what was it? I think it was Norwich in their 3rd game 2 seasons ago. When they beat City, and then all of a sudden their season just fell apart. But they need to stay in games. They need to get points in close games, and yeah. So as far as their kit goes, a little bit strange, I guess, their kit game at this point. They're kind of block red or block yellow for their home and away kits. But their sleeves have sort of a little bit of sort of interesting detailing going on there. I'm not really sure how to describe it. Sorry, I know this is an audio format, so apologies there. But curiously, all of the photos I've seen haven't had a jersey sponsor. So I'm not sure if anyone else has seen one that do have one. But
I did see an article about this that said it's not their intention to have no shirt sponsor for the season. They are in the process of finalizing a deal, and shirts will be out with a shirt sponsor coming.
Should we throw our hat in the ring, boys?
Yeah, I reckon. I mean, we got
more
the
than a game.
colours.
Come on.
M tag on the front.
M tag NFTs. Maybe that'll get us on there.
Might have to update our Canva podcast art if we're going to get on the front of a shirt.
Go the retro look.
Yeah.
Look, I don't mind their kit actually. I mean, it's not terrible. It's not great either, but I'm giving it 7.5 sponsorless jerseys out of 10. In terms of their mascot, though, we haven't had a lot of mascot chat on More Than a Game for a while, and they've got 2. I'm going with they've got 2 because they've sort of chopped and changed between these two over the last couple of seasons. They've got Sherwood the Bear, which cool. It's a bear. And the other one who I quite like, and he's the one who's sort of chopped in and out of
Tim
the
the
last
Tree.
couple of years. It's Robin Hood, who naturally, but he looks a bit like the Captain Feathersword, the pirate Wiggle, which just minus an eye patch. So there's a bit going on there. I mean, both sort of really leaning into the whole sort of Sherwood Forest thing, but you know what, you're Nottingham, why not? So and that's Nottingham Forest. So really looking forward to catching them this season. Next up though is we got Mikey back. He's going to be covering Jesse Southampton. So go on, mate.
Okay. So Southampton, I think they're going into their 5th season under Ralph Hasenhüttl, or I might have butchered that. I probably have again. But and I don't think he's brought terrific success to the club. And a few of you guys earlier were already saying you pick them for relegation. And I think for them to avoid that, they're going to have to be a bit more consistent this season, especially up the back. And it's going to be a bit of an issue with Fraser Forster out going to Spurs. That'll be a bit of a big one for them to miss. The big end I mentioned already, Joe Aribo from Rangers, like I say, scored in the Europa League final. A young guy, a young French boy, Sekou Mara, is coming into the side, and he'll be one to watch. He's, by all reports, a very good young player. I think the fans should be excited about their team if they can get a bit more consistent and they keep players like Che Adams and Ward Prowse, who I think won't be as affected by the World Cup break as other teams will be. So I think Southampton could maybe one of the other teams that might be able to take advantage of that kind of break and will be good for them. I think a successful season for them is cracking 10th to 12th because they've been 15th to 16th like the past 4 or 5 years under Hasenhüttl. But I think they'll be wanting to do a bit better there. I'm not sure if they're done for the season. Their kit, they've got a bit of a. I think if your indoor team wanted to look like Ajax, I think that's their home kit. Bit of a weird one there. Their away kit is, I think, like what we saw the detailing on Chelsea's kit. If it was a full kit, it seems to be waves in dark blue and sky blue. I'm not sure what they're going for there. And of course, the kit is enhanced by sportsbet.io with a little Bitcoin on the logo, which is what we love to see here.
The away kit design looks a little bit like, do you know when people get sleeve tattoos and they just get a little bit of filler between the actual items?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what the away kit looks like. Just a little bit of tattoo filler.
That is really gross.
Southampton, I added in a bit of a mascot chat as well. I've given an 8 out of 10 to Sammy Saint, who is a dog. And again, this is a
It's not that bad.
audio medium, but there's a dog here promoting. I'm not sure what he's promoting there. There's a picture of the dog at the urinal. If you notice blood in your pee, even if it's just the once, tell your doctor. So I think great use of a mascot there. And good advice for us all.
I assume Sammy is a Saint Bernard, right?
Yeah,
it has to be.
gotta
I think that's the little, I think that's the what they're inferring there.
That's nice. There's been another in at Southampton is Romeo Lavia. I'm not sure on the pronunciation, but he's joined from Man City. And I love that Southampton are leaning into the idea of having like the double Romeo in midfield with obviously the other Romeo there and Lavia from in midfield. That would be just a really would enjoy that. But
another transfer I'd mention, Amado Broja, who was on loan from Chelsea, who was a really key player for Southampton last season, isn't there anymore. So I guess that's another kind of asterisk on Southampton there. But I think they can keep up, but it would have to take that they wouldn't be able to slip up against some of the smaller teams. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Next up is going to be Damo with Spurs.
Yeah, look, Spurs. I think Spurs fans are very optimistic after this this off season, and rightly so. They've got Conte. He's been there. He's done it before. It's the first time in a long time that Spurs have sort of backed a manager in the transfer market and let him buy the players that he's wanted to buy. I think they've done some really good business. They've done it early, which is very not like Spurs. They usually leave it to the last minute, and they've filled the gaps that they haven't been able to fill in years gone by. Some of the names they've brought in is Richarlison from Everton, Bissouma from Brighton, Jed Spence, technically from Borough via Forest, where he had his breakout season last year, getting promoted with them. Perisic from Inter. Mikey mentioned Fraser Forster left Southampton to go to Spurs as a backup keeper. And then Lenglet from Barca on loan as well at the back. And of course, they've still got Kulusevski on loan. They've just committed to pay the permanent transfer fee for what's his name? The centre half that everyone highly rates. It's just his name's just slipped my mind at the moment.
Christian Romero.
Yes, that's right. They've agreed to pay the fee for him, so he'll be a permanent player there soon. So they've done a lot of business, and I think that's actually something they'd be nervous about, is the fact that historically, when Spurs have looked like they're going to have a good season, the big name managers have always had the excuse to fall back on that the club didn't financially back them, or they didn't get the players they wanted, or there wasn't enough depth. They've always been the reasons for Spurs not being able to win trophies. But Conte's he just doesn't have excuses. He doesn't have any excuses this year if Spurs don't have any success. So I think if Spurs don't win anything, it'll be interesting to see sort of the fallout from the owners particularly, and then the fans as well. Because I think the owners will do something drastic and a bit of a fire sale if they can't win anything. So it's a bit of all or nothing, ironically, this year for Spurs after Arsenal did it last year. I think they'd be excited, of course, about being back in the Champions League, big European nights at their new ground. They're going to be amazing to watch. I think Spurs will probably do quite well in the Champions League. They've got a squad that's fit, full of very experienced European players. And look, they've had a good starting 11 for a few years now. We know that Spurs' starting 11 has always been really strong. If they could get that 11 on the field at all times and there'd be no injury problems, then they'd always do really well. But unfortunately, the Premier League and how many leagues you play in, squad depth is one of the big things in getting that right. And Spurs have never really got that right. But this year, it seems like that's sort of the aim from Conte, is that rotation and that depth that they've really been looking for is there. So a full preseason and a full season under Conte as well. I think Spurs fans would be really optimistic about winning a trophy this year or anything. My one to watch this year mainly is Perisic. There's been a lot of exciting signings for Spurs come in, and I think Perisic has been cast a little bit in the shadow. He's a free transfer, so they got him for nothing, apart from his wages. But there's been a few big transfer fees, and he's sort of, been pushed aside, and there's no attention put on him. But I think the way Conte sets up, and we saw how he did at Chelsea and how he did it at Inter, where his wing backs are probably the most crucial part of his setup, and that's where Perisic, I see, will play as a wing back, and he's going to provide something from out wide that Spurs have really been begging for years. They haven't had kind of reliable wide man to fit their system. They've had to rely on wingers to do all of that sort of work, that hard work. So to have someone like Perisic, it's going to allow Son in front of him to have much more of a free reign. He can go inside. He can do all sorts of stuff. He can try and replicate his goal scoring from last year.
Is he going to be another Moses, Damo? Like Conte just taking a player who we think is like trash or done or, and just turning, just polishing him up and turning him into a really quality
I think he brought him from Inter. He brought Perisic from Inter, obviously where Conte previously was. And that was exactly what he did at Inter with Perisic, is everyone was like, this guy's done. He's done. And he turned him from a goal-scoring winger to an electric wing back that actually knows how to defend. So I think he already was the Moses a couple of years ago, but now he's going to try and do it in the Premier League as well. So, yeah, I think that's the one to watch, is if he can play well, I think that really suits the way Spurs are going to want to play under Conte. And of course, Kulusevski as well. He had that breakout season at the back end of last year. He, it was probably on the back of his form really that jolted Spurs into the Champions League at the back end. But I think the one to watch about him is and what to be a little bit nervous about with him is, can he back that success up? Can he continue that success over the space of a full season, or will his spark sort of fizzle out because it was electric, right? And can he keep that going is probably the question. Like I said before, a successful season for Spurs is a trophy. They've got to win a trophy, any trophy. They're in 4 competitions this year. They've got to win one of them for it to be a successful season. And anything apart from that is, I don't think, is a success. Obviously, securing Champions League is a must as well in the place that club wants to be. So yeah, that's there's a lot riding on this season for Spurs, and I think it's going to be a really big year for them. I am predicting Spurs to finish second in the league.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think Spurs, I think they're going to get a lot of things right, but I just don't think they're going to be able to catch City. If we go on to their kits, so the Spurs home kit really annoys me because they've got this beautiful white kit with blue trim everywhere, and then there's disgusting red sponsor in the middle. Like if this was blue, why don't you just make this the same navy as the rest of the trim on the kit? And if you centered the logo and that would be a beautiful kit then. But no, they just can't get it quite right. Talking about things that aren't quite right, the away kit is shocking. This
Like
is
a
the sort
wetsuit.
of it does look like a wetsuit. This is what they've got on the away kit with the logo and then the Nike tick and then the sponsor. That's the centering that I would want on their home kit, and put it all in that navy trim and it'd look brilliant.
Oh yeah, that's a rashie. That is just a rashie, right?
It's one of those rashies your grandma buys you at Christmas.
Yeah.
You can just tell, like at the presentation to the Spurs sort of board, they were just gritting their teeth, going, "Thanks, Nike." Just like Christmas Day, when, like you say, when Grandma gives you that one.
And then their third kit is the swirly trippy kit that Liverpool have got, but in blue and navy. So a couple of strange third kits cutting about the league this year, and that's definitely one of them from Spurs. But yeah, I'll give their kits maybe 7 rashies out of 10.
Damon, I don't mind the home kit, but that I agree with you. That second kit, oh geez, that is an absolute shocker. Just an awful kit. Bad colors, bad design. The whole lot about that second kit, I think, is bad. I don't like the centered logo and crest. Nah, I hate it.
Well, the third kit too. It looks like one of the warm-up shirts that we've seen in past few seasons. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. It looks nice, but it doesn't really look like a kit at the same time.
It's very much sort of streetwear, isn't it?
Mm.
All right. Thanks, Damo, for your Spurs preview. Next up is me talking West Ham. Obviously, season after season, I go big on West Ham, but this season, obviously, going to be just keeping myself grounded. Last year they finished 7th. And I'm predicting they're going to go 7th again this year. Despite they've had a pretty solid off season though. They've brought in a new centre back from Rennes. That's Aguerd. They brought in Flynn Downs from Swansea, just a solid ball playing defensive midfielder. They've brought in Areola from PSG. After making his loan deal permanent. And they've brought in the new Zlatan, Gigi Scamacca from Sassuolo. Who I think is going to look. I think he's got the potential to blow up and be good this season, but I guess just have to wait and see. I'm sort of trying to stay grounded, with.
Why is he new Latin? I've missed this memo.
So he's big, and he's got a good touch for a big man.
Right.
That is kind of the comparison. That's about it. No, like
But personality-wise, he's not as Latin, right? Surely.
Not quite. No, not in the same
Really.
ballpark as just having this just galaxy personality kind of thing going on. So not quite and it's more in playing style. He's more like him, and he's just a massively powerful dude for 6'5". So going to be very interesting to see how quickly he can adapt. I mean, he's got all of the potential to turn into the next Zlatan, sort of playing style wise, or he could turn into another Allaire and end up getting shipped off, and he blows up in the Eredivisie and gets sold to Dortmund and then has a testicle removed because it's cancer.
Jesus.
So, I mean, you just don't know how this is going to turn out, right? So. A couple of key outs at West Ham. Obviously, Mark Noble, he's retired. Big loss there. Yarmolenko, he left. He was a really valuable, I think, in the dressing room, but obviously hasn't played much over the last 2 years. Ryan Fredericks also left on a free, and Sonny Perkins, a young player, has headed off to Leeds. The club sent out a really salty press release after Sonny Perkins wouldn't sign a contract extension there, so that was entertaining to watch as well. But look, I think fans will be excited about more European football at the London Bowl. I think they're a really good chance to take out the Europa Conference League and win a trophy for the first time in a long, long while. So that's probably where I think a lot of the attention is going to be paid at the club this year. so like I said, some great additions in Aguerd and Skamaka. They've got Ogbonna coming back after a big injury as well, although he's at, I think, 34 years old now, so you wouldn't expect that he'd be playing sort of 30 games this season. Rumours of more additions as well in Philip Kostic and Amadou Onana from Frankfurt and Lille, respectively, who both of those would be great additions as well. Kostic, I think, sort of sneaks under the radar a little bit and has sort of some Payet-like numbers during his time in the Bundesliga. So it'd be very interesting to see if he can actually arrive in London and then translate that into great form as well. One to watch, already mentioned him, Skamaka. I think he's going to do really well. But what's a successful season? I just think they'll be aiming for 7th again, maybe 6th if Man United keep Ronaldo after failing to sort of get across the line last year. And like I said, I'm predicting they're going to finish 7th. I think it's going to be a fun season for West Ham fans, but just it's so hard to break into that top 6, especially with the likes of Arsenal and Spurs really getting themselves sort of back together. And not sure if someone like Leicester or Villa can really sort of push West Ham for that 7th spot. Looks like it's turning into the West Ham trophy to finish 7th, I think.
Dare to dream, Tommy. I love the expectations that have been set up after a strong season.
In terms of the kit, though, they've gone for some retroness there with like the flashes on the sleeve. I think a lot of people like this. I don't really like the home kit. It's got like the big, thick, sort of rashy style collar as well, which again I don't like. I don't know. Some people like it. Everything about it I don't really like. The away kit, I think that's better with like it's black with lots of sort of white trim, and then there's sort of like a rave style pink and blue and white sort of trim on the sleeve, which I kind of prefer the away kit, I think, more than the home kit. But neither of them I'm really fussed about. And like we said at the top, I wouldn't buy either of them, especially with the Tommy C West Ham curse floating about still as well. But that's West Ham. So like I say, thinking they're going to finish 7th. And finally, Wolverhampton Wanderers, and I'm going to be previewing them as well. Their manager, Bruno Lage, in his 2nd season at the club. They finished 10th last season, which might have sort of snuck under the radar a little bit. And that was after they'd had a bit of a difficult season as well with a bunch of injuries and just, I guess, a thin squad. And so Wolves had the 5th best defense in the league last season, but they had the 4th worst attack. So they were really relying heavily on their defense to sort of see them through games and hoping to get the first goal and or not concede more than one goal, really. A couple of big ins. Nathan Collins, the centre-back, has joined them from Burnley, and it looks like he's probably going to be playing a lot of games for them. They've also converted Huang Hee-chan, the striker from RB Leipzig. He was there on loan. They've converted that into a permanent deal as well. It looks like they've pretty much sold their entire left-hand side of defence, though, with Roman Saiz. He's left to go to Turkey. And Ruben Vinagre, he's left too. And Marçal, he's left too. So I think Johnny Castro is still around, but it's looking like I think they're going to need another left back as well, because Johnny Castro has got a pretty dire injury record there.
They've got Aït-Nouri though, Tommy, don't they? Is he still?
Oh yeah, no, you're right. Sorry, yeah, you're right. And he's been sort of he's still very young, but he's played quite a bit over the last couple of years. Yeah, so you're right. That's they're probably not quite as thin as what I might have led you to believe. But look, I think Wolves do need to freshen up their squad a little bit. They probably need another striker as well. Fabio Silva, he's gone out on loan. Still very, very young. And yeah, well, not a ridiculous thing.
Portuguese, get him in.
You just know that Ronaldo just doesn't have the ticker for it, though.
Or the desire to live in Wolverhampton.
Yeah. I mean, if Wolves were playing Champions League, I mean, different story.
The other thing of note is that Raul Jimenez, I think in the last couple of days, is injured himself. I think he's out for 6 to 8 weeks, which is a huge loss for them. I think it was the season before where he had that massive head injury and meant that he missed most of that season. And he saw just how crucial he was to them. And that was when they still had Jota. And I think there was a few other key players that they still had at the time. Ruben Neves, he sort of was crying and farewelling the fans in the last game of the season, but there has been absolutely nothing about him going anywhere in this off season. So that's been a little bit embarrassing, I think, for him personally.
I think he's going to be the next Zaha, Tommy. It's like he should have left about 3 seasons ago, and he's just going to be there for life.
Well, I guess the strange thing is he's still young enough to, in 2 seasons' time, to go to a bigger club. But like he's doing a really solid effort there. But he's not really lighting up the league either, though. So he's still in a little bit of a weird sort of time warp, I guess, at the moment. Speaking of time warps, they've managed to hold on to Moutinho for another. He's extended his contract as well, which is kind of wild. It just feels like the guy just goes on and on and on, a bit like me. But they've also will have Neto. He will hopefully be injury free for this season, and there's going to be a lot of responsibility on him and Daniel Podence's shoulders for this season. And hopefully they'll be able to guide them through that period where they're going to be without Raul Jimenez. Fans will be nervous about scoring goals. That goes without saying. Even before Raul Jimenez's injury in the last couple of days, I should say. And even before Raul Jimenez got injured, I said that Raul Jimenez's injury record would be of concern, and obviously that's even more so now. Jose Sarr pretty much kept them in a lot of games last year. There was some ridiculous stat about how he alone, sort of from an XG perspective, saved 8 goals. Or the equivalent of 8 goals last year, just in XG terms. So whether or not he can repeat those heroics again will be a big sign into whether or not Wolves can stay mid-table, whether or not they get sucked down the table. What's a successful season? Just mid-table again. Hopefully they can not get sucked into the relegation zone. But I'm predicting that they're going to finish 11th on the back of another great defensive record again coming up. In terms of their kit, though, not a lot going on here. Home kit, yellow, black trim, made by Castore, as you'd expect. Pretty inspirationless, pretty dull, a bit like watching Wolves play. It's solid, it's yellow, it's not a lot going on, not a lot happening. The away kit, it's sort of a very dark teal. Maybe you call it dark emerald. I'm not sure about the color. Not a lot going on.
Maybe
either.
you would. Maybe.
Maybe. I don't mind the away kit, Tommy.
Look, I can see that there's like a very faint sort of orange geometric pattern, sort of sneaking into the background there on the back of that dark teal, dark
Amy
emerald,
Parker
maybe almost bottle green away kit. But look, there's really not a lot going on with either of these kits, and they're Castore, so automatically I hate them to begin with. So, I'm giving them 4 inspirationless kits out of 10, because they're just.
And what's that sponsor? Is that another Loan Shark sponsor, or is that what is Astro Pay?
Astro Pay, which is probably the highest thing that's going on about Wolves, I think, this season. Because it's the most aspirational thing, because nothing else is in the stars for them, I think. So look, pretty grim as far as the kit goes, but I think Wolves are going to have just another season where they sort of coast under the radar and finish mid-table, and everyone goes, how did Wolves finish mid-table? And no one's going to understand. But look, that also wraps up all 20 teams that we've previewed. It's been a lot of fun talking about the Premier League again after about 2 months off. Can't wait for the Premier League to start again next season. I think the Community Shield is on tomorrow night, Australian time, which is just sort of, is it tonight? Saturday night?
Yeah, at the King Power Stadium too. I think they're starting a new thing where they play at the venue of the current holders. I'm not sure why that's.
They won it last
year. It's not
year.
at Wembley. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's I'm not against that. Although I guess mean, Wembley and the English, there's just a strange relationship or a weird relationship they have with that. Obviously, very central to English football, I guess. But look, it's been great having you with us again. This year, unfortunately, it's looking like we're not going to be doing weekly podcasts. We've all got very busy lives. And so we're going to be, I guess, our approach to timing of pods is going to be evolving a little bit, but we'll talk a little bit more about that as the season evolves as well. So looking forward to talking more football with you all throughout the season, though. But until then, enjoy the football.